I'll call to order the Regional Council meeting for Thursday, September the 14th. Roll call. All members are present except Mayor Crombie. Councillor Fonseca is on other municipal business, and Councillor Sato is absent. Before we move on with the agenda, I would like to welcome Dr. Jessica Hopkins to Peel to her first Regional Council meeting. Dr. Hopkins joined us in mid-August after cutting her public health teeth at the City of Hamilton and Niagara region. She led the City of Hamilton's opioid response planning and dealt with several controversial public health issues, including a proposed gas plasma waste incinerator on Hamilton Harbor. I know I speak on behalf of Regional Council when I say we are pleased to have someone with her talent and expertise to help shape the future of public health in Peel. Welcome, Jessica. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest from any members? Seeing none then. I'm going to move to the clerk just to give us a little explanation with respect to the recorded voting.
Good morning. At the July 6, 2017 Regional Council meeting, Council approved the recommendation of the Procedure Bylaw Review Committee to conduct recorded votes for all motions at Regional Council with few exceptions. The recording of votes was to start upon completion of sufficient Regional Council chamber technology upgrades to provide for an effective method of recording votes. Today, a review of the electronic voting process was completed and new enhancements have been implemented to improve the usability of the voting system. Each councillor will use the voting buttons to cast their votes, and the system will record the votes. You will see that there are 3 voting buttons. An abstain button has been added beside the yes and no voting buttons. Each councillor present in chambers at the time of the vote will be required to press one of the 3 voting buttons. Councillors are requested to use the buttons for casting their votes. Councillors present during the vote who want to abstain from voting yes or no are requested to press the abstain button. An abstain vote will count as a no vote, but the minutes will reflect that it was an abstention. Councillors who are in attendance at the meeting but not actually present in chambers during the vote will be called absent for the vote, and it will be reflected in the minutes as absent for the vote. In order to keep an exact count of council members present or absent at meetings, please let me or one of the clerk's staff know when you are departing the council meeting for the balance of the day. The following is a list of the more routine motions that do not require a recorded vote to be taken unless specifically asked for by a member of council. So we will not be doing recorded votes for approval of agenda, adoption of minutes, presentations, delegations, correspondence, bylaws, moving in and out of closed session, calling a question, or adjournment. You have been provided with an information sheet at your desk with the aforementioned changes on the voting system. So it's on your silver counters there. So thank you for your patience while we get started with recorded voting and using the electronic system. We'll go a little slow today just to give us a chance to make sure we're hitting the right buttons at the right time. So thank you for your patience.
Thanks very much, Catherine. That moves us to approval of the minutes. Motion from Councillor Tovey. No?
No, you're approving the minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I'm on it. I'll move the minutes.
Yeah, that's, yeah, okay. And Councillor Starr. Any amendments to it? All in favor then? Opposed, if any? Carried, thank you. No.
Not for...
Weren't you listening?
Wanted to make sure you...
That good comeback.
The clue is going to be when the voting buttons are flashing, that's when we're going to be using the buttons.
Okay.
So we have a signal then.
Yeah, we'll give you a signal.
Approval of the agenda? Councillor Tovey.
Yes, I would like to withdraw 14.1, please.
Okay, duly noted. Councilor Maderos.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to add an item in camera regarding pay equity and an update on negotiations of long-term support workers.
Okay. Mayor Jeffrey, did you have a request?
I did. Thank you for reminding me. I ask that we defer item 11.8, the correspondence from Chief Evans, as this item hasn't actually been discussed at the Police Services Board yet. So we have a meeting on the 29th, so if we could do that for now. Thank you.
The appendix for 11.
Okay, the clerk has just indicated to me that item 8.1 is in your folders, the appendix. Moved by Councilor Yanika and seconded by Councilor Gibson that the agenda for the September 14, 2017 Regional Council meeting be approved as amended. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Okay, delegations. Our first delegate today is Pam Banks, Executive Director, and Sunil Selby, Chair, Research Innovation Center. Presenting an update on RIC activities and requesting funding support for hiring of student intern. Welcome.
Thank you, members
You can
of...
sit, you may sit.
Thank you, Chair and members of Council. I'm going to be presenting myself today as our Chair, Sunil Selby, is also a manager of a VC fund called Trellis Capital, and he's off out of country doing a deal today. I'm going to share with you a little bit of information about the RIC Center. The RIC Center is also known as the Research Innovation Commercialization Center, and we're part of the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs. We're a not-for-profit organization, and our lead partner is the Ministry of Research, Innovation, and Science. Our core role is to work with tech-based entrepreneurs to help them fast-track their business to market. In other words, we work with people right from ideation stage to those companies that are growing and scaling internationally. And we help them connect to the right resources and supports to make them successful. We're tethered to this area where our area of focus is Peel Region, and we're physically co-located with Xerox Research Centre along with Green Centre Canada. And our focus is on sort of three core areas: advanced manufacturing, clean technologies, the Internet of Things, and digital media. And our focus is really to work with those businesses that are launching to help them get to a significant milestone in their next level of growth. Our incubator program is really a boutique offering that works with clients that are looking for access to space and also lab and analytical services that are available through Xerox Research Centre. And our core point is to help those companies get to a significant milestone where they can get to market. We do have a proven track record. We've worked with over 700 startups that have raised over $240 million and generated $115 million in revenue. One of the benefits, again, with co-locating with Xerox is we do have a unique relationship with them, so that companies that need access to wet labs, as long as those companies meet the standards that Xerox has around environmental concerns and environmental approvals, they can get access to the Xerox labs to continue their work and validate their technology. Probably the most important thing that we do with companies is to help them find funding. So we work with them very closely to help them prepare for funding through government sources or help them prepare for investment to raise capital. We have over 100 industry experts that have domain expertise that work with these companies, many of them on a volunteer basis, because they're excited and want to help that next generation of businesses add to our economy. The other piece for incubating clients is they do get access to physical space in a private office to sort of legitimize to the business community that they are real and that they are in business. From a snapshot of our activities from 2016, we've worked with over 240 new startups. We've provided support to over 600 tech companies. And at least 50% of our clients have said we've made a vital, significant impact on their entrepreneurial journey. From a snapshot of the types of clients that we work with, you'll see a big portion of our clients are in IoT, which is the Internet of Things and digital media, advanced manufacturing, clean tech, and then we've bucketed the others that are focused more broadly on, I would say, software and others. We have made a significant impact in helping these companies reach significant milestones. We've helped companies launch 153 new products to market. We've helped companies launch services, 87 new services, and 21 granted patents. From a breakdown of both revenues and jobs, those companies have made significant contributions to the economy. Overall, they've generated over $29 million in revenue and created over 500 full-time jobs, and just in 2016 alone, 162 new jobs. And this information is gathered from the survey that we do on an annual basis. So we work very closely with our One Network partner, which is Mars. They have a group called Data Catalyst, and Data Catalyst work with us very closely to put together a survey to survey our clients. From the revenues or funding raised, you can see that we have a significant portion that's focused on our strategic areas, which is clean tech, IoT, digital media, and advanced manufacturing, as well as other. And from a partnering perspective, we're able to bring value because we work with many groups in partnership to make sure that entrepreneurs get the right resources at the right time to help them get to those milestones. So our founding partners are our municipal and partners, Mississauga, Brampton, Town of Caledon, Peel Region, as well as our academic institutions, Sheraton College and University of Toronto. And then we also work with Ontario Centres of Excellence, of course the province of Ontario, and we also have some private sector program partners that again provide those direct connections back to the business community to help those companies move forward. That's the end of my formal presentation. My ask of council today is for a contribution to allow us to expand our programs to bring in a student intern or a recent graduate to help us connect our community better, both in the ways of communicating the opportunities around entrepreneurship and innovation, and support our local municipalities. All of our municipalities have a growing interest and support around innovation and entrepreneurship. One of the things that we find is that entrepreneurs only know what they need to know at a particular moment in time. Our role from a RIC Center perspective is to be sort of that wayfinder and pathfinder and help them to connect the dots to those things that they need to help them get and move forward. The other focus of this role is to really work within the community to find out the assets that are perhaps less known, that sometimes live in academic institutions or private companies that have capacity or runtime on their equipment that might be willing to allow an early stage entrepreneur to use some of their equipment for initial prototyping, short flexible runs and others. In this role will help us uncover those assets and make those connections and strengthen the communication in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Raz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Pam, for coming today. You've come such a long way since you started this back in 2008. I mean, at that time, the Board of Directors was basically the Mississauga Board of Trade Directors. So it's so nice to see that value proposition that was presented back in probably going back to 2006 and it actually coming to fruition. So for that, I just want to congratulate you. And I was on the RIC website last night looking at some of the success stories, and actually Councillor Sato might be interested where CAMISI, which is the Canadian, what is the Canadian Association of Mining? They're in your ward, and but there's that gold sniffer innovation that came out of RIC and that you helped promote and worked with them to bring something to fruition that makes mining more efficient and more environmentally friendly. So I just want to congratulate you. There's some fabulous success stories, and please let us know how we can help promote those. I fully support your ask. I think it's a very small investment and it can be absorbed within the current human resource budget, so I think it's a reasonable ask as well. And I just want to say thank you for partnering with Xerox. They're also in Ward 2. And can you let me know what you're going to be doing with, if anything, with the new Centre for Advanced Manufacturing and how RIC is going to be partnering with them?
The new center that you're referring to is the Center for Advanced Manufacturing and Materials, and it's a federal initiative that will be co-located on the Xerox site. Their focus is going to be on disruptive technology. So we're working very closely with Xerox, hopefully NRC and our local communities, to figure out how we can be and develop a receptor community. So as either private corporations work with the researchers to uncover new ideas, sometimes those new ideas spin out as new startups. So we need to build that receptor community. I've been in conversations with some of the folks from NRC around how we might be able to do that. So there's a lot of things that are in the works. Some of them, I believe, will be tied to the Advanced Manufacturing Supercluster Initiative and what the outcome is federally, whether they're invited to do a full submission. So I believe that will have an impact on what that center will look like. I believe that they are going to be breaking ground soon. My fingers
Yes.
are crossed. I look out every morning to see if there's a bulldozer out
coming.
there. But I believe that that will provide real opportunities for not only Mississauga, but the broader community to have a very, very important role around our future, around manufacturing and the Internet of Things, as well as materials.
Well, once those ideas get solidified, we're happy to help if you can come back to us because you serve all three communities plus the region of Peel, how we can help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Crombie.
Good morning, Pam. Delighted to see you. I just wanted to praise you as well for all the great work you have done as an incubator, as a startup, mentoring young businesses, new businesses. We've had some incredible success stories, as Councillor Rass has pointed out. I, in particular, have enjoyed working with you on the Mayor's Angel Networking Investor Night. We've had some great success stories out of that, highlighting new business startups and partnering them with angel investors. So I want to thank you for that. I think your ask is very reasonable. I'd like to move that. I don't know if Councillor Rass did. Maybe she'll second it, or she can move it and I'll second it. And I want to suggest that that be an ongoing amount of money. It's a very modest amount of money. And if it would help you and help you continue to mentor these business startups in our three municipalities, then we're happy to support that. So I'd like to move a motion that we, for the $30,000 for RIC centers on an annual basis. 35. Karen wants to. It's there, they're located in her ward. Oh, okay. Either way. Oh, whoever. Thank you. So we'll take the vote at the appropriate time, but I want to thank you for all you do. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I look forward to our next Angel Investor Night.
Thank you. Mayor Thompson.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad to hear that the advanced manufacturing is finally moving, because I do know I've had businesses come in and saying they're really challenged. The business industry for intelligent and advanced manufacturing is moving so fast. Ford's goal by 2020 is to, instead of having parts delivered in time, or just they're going to manufacture in time. They're going to use the CAD. Just manufacture the part you need. Doesn't matter if you got like Jim's 1960 Ford Fairmont to, Ron's old truck. They can manufacture the part within 24, 36 hours, depending on what it is. without having to store inventory. And it's moving quite fast. I know they've been waiting for governments around the world, but they realize the technology is moving. They have to move to keep up. And I think today is what we saw, what moved in 20 years is happening within a year. The technology is just moving so fast. I think government just really hasn't understood. But I think getting here is really important, and I think what you're asked here is key. I have one question to ask of you, and here's a challenge is, what's even unique, especially in the Bolton area, is we have a lot of small, new startup manufacturing companies, and they're developing stuff for satellites, different things, and they're also even making equipment better for highway trucks, to intelligent skids, to, so that eggs don't break. There's so much stuff moving today. The challenge they're having is they need to invest more into research and development, but they're so busy trying to keep up with the demands, they don't have that ability to have an R&D. And they were saying if we can get an R&D center or get someone to do some work for us, because they're small companies. They employ from 7 to 14 people, as Councillor Groves knows. These people are really, they're running full speed 20 hours a day. They don't have time, but they know they need it. And they said, does economic development at the town help with that? Which we don't. And I know our people have been reaching out to you to ask that same question, but I asked that today, is I know we're great at helping innovators get started, but is there a way to serve the businesses so that we can remain stronger and be competitive by offering an ability to share people that are good at doing research and development to help these companies be able to stay competitive?
I believe that's part of what the Center for Advanced Materials and Manufacturing is going to be all about.
Okay.
Now, the big question is their target going to be to OEMs, or will they have bandwidth to work with those smaller SME sort of enterprise companies? The question is always who pays. But there may be some things that we can do in putting together a project, perhaps through IRAP. We have a very strong relationship with IRAP, and we've done an interesting pilot project in the last year, particularly for companies that are in revenue, trying to unlock new revenue. So there may be ways that perhaps Ben Roberts is on our board of directors, and we do have a directors meeting tomorrow, so I can have that conversation with him to see if we can get a better sense of what those companies might be, and if we can work with him to be an intermediary to try to pull together perhaps some resources that might be from IRAP or other pockets.
That would be really good. And I think the other concern that they have right now, small business with the new taxation that's coming in, and before you can write off what you do in research and development, and with the new tax structure that a lot of small businesses are being hit with, that might be pulled back, and that might be really detrimental, because if that's ability for them to be able to forward their profits, that's beneficial to what you're looking for and what you're trying to do. That was their other ask, is their concern that they've been hitting up with her MP right now, is this tax structure is going to really hurt us. And so I know the Ontario Chamber of Commerce has been working on that as well, along with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. But we don't need to get into that today. But I think where you're going is, I'm glad to hear that, and I know Ben would probably be able to fill you in. But I just couldn't let that go, that hearing what the businesses are asking for. It makes sense. I can understand. And these are all young companies that just have got going within the last 10 years. So it's tough. You're still trying to build capital. You don't have big dollars to work with. So thank you.
It's not easy.
Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Excuse me. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Pam, I'm over here.
Sorry, I'm looking at all the names as quickly as I can.
That's okay. And I recognize that the RIC Centre does amazing work and is very supportive of all of the municipalities. But I guess when I read the report, I thought, why would the region of Peel fund a student or an intern for the RIC Centre? Why would the RIC Centre come to the region of Peel because they wanted to hire a student for a year when we already provide funding to you and base funding? And you have many partners. I don't know what your budget is, but the region of Peel in the past seems to be the place where people come when they need additional funds for one thing or another. This, to me, should be, the request should be made to the province of Ontario. I really do believe that is where the source of funding should come, or it should be something that is funded through the many different partners that you already have. So there are also employment programs that not-for-profit organizations can apply for funding to support these kinds of initiatives. So why would you just choose to come to the region?
So from a provincial perspective, they are our lead partner. They reduced our funding a year ago by $100,000. From the municipality perspective, we're happy to be partners with our municipalities. We received $10,000 in funding from the City of Mississauga and $10,000 of funding from the City of Brampton and $2,500 from Caledon. That in itself is not enough to fund a student for even 6 months.
Did we not increase your funding this year? Or I know you came and we gave you additional funds.
That's correct. That was payment for last year because we didn't actually receive last year's funding.
Okay.
Councillor
So-
Miles, if I may, I was going to ask the Commissioner if she could respond to your comments.
Thank
Sure.
you very much.
Sure.
Through the chair, I did just want to add that in human services, specifically in our employment services area, we have a very successful relationship with the Research Innovation Center. They work with our clients who are interested in pursuing self-employment and entrepreneurial opportunities. And as I think we all know, that's a significant trend in the economy towards self-employment and small business. So they provide another tool for which us to help our clients seek employment.
And that's great. That's wonderful. But I don't see how that applies to the hiring of an intern and why the region becomes the organization for you to request funds from. So one thing of note that you've said is the province of Ontario reduced your funding by $100,000 a year. Did they give you a reason for the reduction, or it was?
So that funding primarily came from the Youth Job Strategy Program, which was completed in March 31st, 2017. So that program ended.
So believe me, I'm not unsympathetic to this. I know in the past, when we have partnered with many not-for-profits, the region of Peel tends to be the most compassionate and the most forthcoming in providing resources when they're needed. What I would like to say is that I believe rather than these one-off sums of money that we are providing to the RIC Centre when you're in need, I would prefer to see the cities and the region increase their annual amount that they provide to you for support. So $10,000 on an annual basis, that is not a big ask. But one-offs, $35,000 for a specific hiring, to me, doesn't fall within what we as a region should be providing funding for, if you know where I'm coming from. So I would prefer to see us take a look at our annual budgets that through the budget process, the funds that we provide for the RIC Centre to do the very worthwhile work that they're doing, and understanding that they have had a reduction in your funding for students, which makes sense why you're coming here. But if we as a region continue to respond in this way to requests from not-for-profits for items that are outside of our normal granting process that we have, we're giving away grants from $3 to $5 million a year for not-for-profit organizations. It's a slippery slope. So my request is that, and I'll hear what the rest of council says, but I don't think we should be providing $35,000 a year for an intern or a graduate. But I would be more supportive of looking at an increase in the budget that we provide to the RIC Centre on an annual basis. And I would support that here, and I would support that at the municipalities to ensure that the RIC Centre continues to provide the support to all of the municipalities and the region of Peel in the way that they have, and in the very successful support that they've given to companies across the board. So I will wait to hear what my colleagues say, but I'm very concerned about the motion that's on the floor, and I would not be able to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Well, thank you. I guess Brampton's going to be a bit of a Debbie Downer today. I share a lot of Councillor Miles' perspective on this, and you know, I think we do need a reminder, and this is not in any way a reflection of the good work that the RIC Centre does at all, but it has to do with how we manage our investment in the community. If we just sort of reflect back, and a lot of the people sitting around this table weren't here when we revised and revamped and refocused the community grant program here at the region, where we made a very deliberate choice to invest in sustainability and in capacity building for those that we're funding in the community. What we saw was that when there is sustainable annual funding coming from the region, that it becomes a situation where the agencies or the organizations are relying on that funding every year. And just like you couldn't rely on the funding from the province, I don't think that we should be providing that reliable funding when every year the landscape, the financial landscape for the region of Peel changes. We saw our grants in 10 years here at the region that we were investing with agencies in the community increase from $500,000 to what it is today at about $6.5 million. And that's a lot of money. So I have a problem with the annual funding piece. I think your ask was very reasonable in terms of $35,000 for 1 year funding, and I would ask that, you know, the mayor reconsider and put it back to that. It was for a project-specific student, or a student to complete a specific project that was going to benefit the organization and the services that you provide for the community. I think that if there's another specific ask next year for a project, then I think the council of the day should have an opportunity to evaluate that. But if we just give you $35,000 each year and you carry on, we have no assurances, we have no comfort that that $35,000 is being invested in a way that's going to directly benefit the regional investment for those dollars. I do think that the RIC Centre, you know, and maybe a project-specific student that you have in the future is hiring a student that allows you to go out and build and strengthen your presence in the corporate, you know, with our private investors and with the private sector. Because I'd like to see the page that shows your partners full of employers, investors, entrepreneurs in the region of Peel. Your partners, both in your program partners and your founding partners are who they are, but certainly your program partners, there is an opportunity to increase capacity there. And I think that when you look at the criteria for the regional grants, having an ask to increase your program partners, hire a student or hire somebody to help do that, is relevant and is consistent with the community grant criteria that we have today. And I think that coming to council today, outside of that community investment grants that we make, is really not the best way to be managing this. I like Councillor Miles' idea that, you know, let's look at your overall budget and look at your priorities moving forward, and then look at an increase in the annual amount that we make investment. But these one-offs, they do add up over time, and it's not that each individual one isn't a good investment, but you know, I'll just remind members of council, most recently there was an organization, the Peel Children and Youth Initiative, where we were investing a lot of money, and the amount of money we were investing each year, it just grew and grew and grew. The organization doesn't exist today because their reliance on regional funding became so profound. Other partners disappeared. And the work that they were doing, while maybe valuable, wasn't valuable in the context of what we needed them to do for the amount of money that we were making in that investment. So I think, there's enough examples, certainly at our local municipalities, where we got caught in the trap of annual funding and then end up pulling the rug out and because we became the primary funder for things, and that was never the intent. So I'll support a one-time funding for $35,000. I can't for the annual funding. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Starr.
Well, the Rec Center, I think I probably attended one of the very first meetings when it was getting going with the Board of Trade and all the rest of it. And I think I sat in on some of the, if I remember, the meetings that were the embryo of the whole organization. And then, I've attended a number of meetings. And I support the Rec 100%. What I don't support is the idea of an ongoing grant forever. I don't see any sunset date on this. I don't see any mechanism of reporting back, and I think it's been mentioned where sometimes the money, as the checks go from year to year to year, get lost. And I know Rick's a little bit different, but that's why I'd like to suggest that the motion go back to the one-time funding. I'll support that. And come up with some sort of reporting mechanism to us. Tell us how well you're doing, how the program's working. And throughout the report that was written by staff, which is a good report, by the way, it keeps mentioning one time, one time, one time. Well, let's follow through with that then. If that was your original request, and I'd like to see the success of how that worked out and how you're doing down the road. $35,000 in our budget is not a lot of money, but I agree that we should have some sort of reporting back to us so that we know, and maybe included in the community grants, or maybe there's a different way to support this great cause. I think you do great work, by the way. And as a personal story, one of the people I did meet at one of the, I guess, meet and greets or whatever you have there with the shrimp and ginger ale. I got talking to him later, directed him, you probably don't even know this, directed him to another person I knew, and they did a little bit of business together. So, all this works. But at the same time, never mind all the work, let's, have a reporting mechanism. The question that I think we alluded to, what's the budget, overall budget for RIC?
Our overall budget is around $800,000. So that serves our Peel region community. We have 600 clients. We talked a lot about sort of community support or contributions. We have 100 volunteer advisors that give up their time. So those 100 advisors would more than fill up a sheet, but they're not providing cash. They're providing actual time and support to the companies that some of you have met to actually help them make connections, provide them with real information about their go-to-market strategy, who they should partner with, who they shouldn't partner with. So those are invaluable. I like the conversation that we've had around looking at the ongoing budget and increasing the contributions from the municipalities. If we go back in time, that $10,000 has been a static number since probably the very beginning. Our demand in our client base has probably tripled. We have, had conversations with the good people that are on our board that represent the municipalities who have basically said, don't come back and ask for more funds. That's the way it is. So I welcome the opportunity to see how we can, grow the contributions from the municipalities, because the demand is not only increasing from a client perspective, but the demand for us to be present and supportive of the municipalities as they grow through their own initiatives has increased.
And Pam, I think you've just said what I've been thinking, or I wrote down a couple little things. We need to know more information, and so many programs get at a static level because some of that information and the progress and the vision of the group or whoever, we don't find that out. And this happens at the city level. We get the concerns from some groups. Well, you've kept us at this, level for the last 18 years, or you've reduced us, and that's difficult. But we have to have that information. I think coming forward, maybe making a full presentation for budget this year, next year, whatever, and coming forward and tell us a little bit about the organization. And I think we will learn more, and perhaps there's more money, or maybe less. I don't know, but I'm just saying that I know it's not a lot of money, but I think we have the obligation to make sure that every dollar we spend is spent right. And I'd suggest to the mover and the seconder that at one time was probably a better solution right at this point, and I'll support that. And then go into getting us more information down the road and making, a wholesome presentation. Thank you.
David, would you like to make a comment? David?
The CFO.
Oh, the CFO, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, just to provide some clarity, the funding is out of the Employment Services Program budget, which is cost-shared or funded by the province. So, in fact, we are getting money from the province to attribute back to RIC, which is a good thing. But what we might want to do is, and hearing some of the comments, is bring it back as an annual report to report on the success of the RIC, and then Council can make a determination of the level of funding in future years, which is sort of the intent of the report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think that's something that I can support. I've always supported the Rec Center, and I agree with everything you're doing. You guys do some fantastic work. I'd love to see you guys back on a yearly basis and tell us about some exciting new stuff that you're doing and provide us with additional information. So I can certainly support one-time funding and request that you come back on a yearly basis. Thank you.
Councillor Parrish.
Must be an election year, guys. $35,000 on a $2 billion budget, and we're spending a lot of time on this. I think there is a compromise that we just heard, which is I would continue to vote for it as a yearly thing, but put it as a budget line in your application next year for budget. Separate it out as a line item at $35,000, and we can always take it out, put it in, do whatever we want, ask you questions. So I support the concept of making it long-term. I support the concept of doing youth intake and making sure that it's a bona fide program, that it's not a one-shot deal and then next year other young people will apply for it and the year after other people will apply for it. The one-shot deals tend to be vaporized at the end of the year. So I would support it as is written, and I would suggest that when you come back at budget time, you have that one line item separated out, and we either look at it or we don't look at it. But I support the motion exactly the way it is.
Thank you, Mayor Crombie.
And sorry, I don't know how that ended up. You support it the way it is? Okay. Yeah. I've got to be honest with you. I think we've spent more than $35,000 discussing this morning. There's not even a rounding error in our budget. This is a great organization doing incredible work. How about we add contingent on annual reporting back to us? It was that you feel better about that, and if we do that, this program has been sunset and we don't need the $35,000 for an intern based on an annual basis, then we'll reallocate the money or take it back. This is a great organization. They've already been clawed back. We want to support them in the work they do. They are supporting innovation. That speaks to all of our agendas. They're speaking to young entrepreneurs, which are our youth who are starting businesses. They're supporting youth. This is $35,000, folks. I think we all woke up on the wrong side of the bed today. Come on. Whether it's one time or annual, I mean, so you're willing to support it one time, and we'll come back to it. So we'll compromise. It's annual funding for your intern. based on annual reporting back to us that you're continuing the program and what you've done with the money. How's that? Is that acceptable for those who are nervous Nellies, that they're going to misspend our $35,000? Ronnie, you okay with that? Ronnie?
Spends more in tips.
Are you finished?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Miles.
Well, I think the personal comments are disrespectful and uncalled for, to start off with. And if we at the Region of Peel want to make decisions like this at the flip of a hat, I think there's accountability that comes into this. My comments were very specific in that we needed to assist the RIC Centre in providing them with sustainable funding on an annual basis so that they wouldn't have to come cap in hand like today and have this kind of discussion about whether or not the Region of Peel should be funding a student for the RIC Centre. I would far rather see the RIC Centre have sustainable annual funding, and then not only the Region of Peel, but the municipalities as well, step up to the plate and support the work that they're doing. So I take exception to the comments. I don't think we've wasted $35,000. I think what we have done is we have said to the RIC Centre, we support you and we want to help you into the future, but we want to help you by providing sustainable funding on an annual basis. And as stated by our CFO, I think that's what we can move towards, but we have to do it through the appropriate manner, and that's through the budget process. So if you want to, I will support one-time funding for the position on the codicil that it comes back to budget, and in the meantime, we work with the RIC Centre, not only here at the Region of Peel, but at the municipalities as well, to ensure that the level of funding that we're providing is appropriate and we're doing it in an appropriate way. So I would like to amend the motion on the floor that the request for funding be one time and that we work with the RIC Centre and bring it back during the budget process. So that would be an amendment to the motion.
Councillor Sato.
Thank you. Well, I'm leaning more towards, I was going to say almost the same thing that Gail did. I'm reading your report, the staff report, and you're not asking for an ongoing intern. You're asking for a one-time position on page 2 of the report for a period of 12 months to create an inventory of technical assets and supports, and also to focus on the marketing and the analysis of trends. So I'm reading this that you want to bring someone in to do a very specific job for 12 months, and you have a purpose for that person. I'm not sure at the end of that 12 months, at this point in time, whether that person is going to have further jobs or not, or if there will be a new project to come in. So I can support one-time funding because that's what is being asked for in the report. It's not being asked for an intern every single year forever. I do agree, however, that this $10,000 annually that we are funding is perhaps too low. I don't know what an appropriate amount would be, and I agree with Gail that I think it should be something as part of the budget, and I think staff should be, bringing us a report based on that annual funding, not the intern. I think there's two separate issues. So I'm prepared to support what you have asked for, which is 12 months of an intern for $35,000 to do the specific job that is outlined in the report, period. And I think that keeps it very clean. But I am also prepared to support Councillor Miles' recommendation that staff be directed to review this $10,000, which is basically nothing. And if some of that money is coming from provincial funding, then I think we need to take a look at that. I don't know where the rest of it is going, so we need to know that. And to look at the annual sustainable increasing that $12,000. not for a specific project, because, at the end of the 12 months, excuse me, the $35,000, you may not need $35,000 for the following year because you may not have another project for an intern, or you might. But at this point in time, we don't know that, and without a long-term plan in front of us, I don't think we can approve the $35,000 and give direction for ongoing for that. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure. I think Councillor Miles' recommendation, it's more than a friendly amendment. I think it needs to be a separate recommendation if this one doesn't pass, that we approve the $35,000 as requested for the one-time intern, and that staff be directed to bring a report showing what actual sustainable funding should be provided by the Region of Peel on an ongoing basis. And it would come through budget. So, sorry I can't support you on the annual, but I just don't have enough information to say that it's required.
I think $10,000 a year.
Mayor Crombie.
We all do. We all do.
Except for Caroline, which is a bit less.
It's a bit less, okay. So we're just clarifying the amount of support that we give the RIC Centre today, which does seem very low. So I will take Councillor Miles' suggestion as a friendly amendment, and we will vote only once. Okay? Everybody happy? And direction to staff to come back to give proper support to the RIC Centre. You see how easy that is?
I'm going to ask the CEO to respond to that.
Yes, I've asked the clerk actually, rather than taking his direction, to put it in the resolution that staff report back on adequate funding from all 4 municipalities, because it's not just a regional issue. It's really a benefit. The RIC Centre is a benefit to all of us. I really believe that, and that's why staff supported the RIC. And it was actually my suggestion that Pam come to council and explain the work they've done. We meet annually, and I met with Pam and the board chair to get a report on the funding to date, and that's where we had the discussion back in April, I believe, about the need for additional funding. So we can certainly take this under our wing and report back to council on overall funding as well.
So if council could just take a few seconds to take a look at the motion. All right. So this will be a recorded vote. Councillor Groves?
Yeah. Just on the last line, Mr. Chair, it should really say the 2018 budget, sustainable funding in the 2018 budget. Yeah, but it should be specified in there, yeah.
Are we happy now?
Yes.
All right. So the motion's been moved by Mayor Crombie, seconded by Councillor Raz, I'll read it just for the public, that the request for additional one-time funding for the Research Innovation Center, RIC, in the amount of $35,000 to support a student, intern, or recent graduate be approved, and further that staff report to Regional Council on all municipal funding for the RIC with recommendations for adequate levels of sustainable funding in the 2018 budget. So make your selection.
So all members have voted?
It's approved. And then if I could have a motion, Mayor Thompson and Councillor Miles, to move receipt of the delegation. All in favor? Carried. Thank you so much for being here today. Our next delegation, Sharon Main Devine, Executive Director, and Rob El-Sayed, Manager, Fund Development and Communications with the Catholic Family Services, Peel Dufferin. And I don't see Rob, so maybe you could introduce who is with you.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Main Devine, Executive Director, Catholic Family Services, Peel Dufferin, and the Honorable William G. Davis Center for Families. And I'm here with my colleague, Shalina Jashani, who is our Director of Programs and has been around long enough to speak to the history and the journey that we've taken at the Honorable William G. Davis Center for Families. And I'm here this morning with a number of my colleagues, Gurpreet Malhotra from Indus Community Services, Vicki Lowry from Peel Children's Aid, David Clement from Eclipse Youth Centers and Rapport Youth and Family Services, and Chantal LaFleur from Associated Youth Services, or otherwise known as AYSP. So we're really excited to be here with you today, and you're maybe wondering why I'm naming so many people, and there's so many more people who, while not in the chambers with us today, are really here with us in spirit. We all live together, and we all live together at the Honorable William G. Davis Center for Families. And we are a community hub where we all come together to knit the services together to provide that social safety net that we talk about and have been dreaming of in our community for many, many, many years. We have 16 partners all living together, and we provide a whole range of services, mental health services, addictions, violence prevention. We have the Peel Elder Abuse Network, Community Kitchen, providing culinary training for youth. And the reason why that we're here today is really to extend a big thank you to you for the development, the support you've given us for the development of our hub. The Regional Council gave us a $500,000 loan quite a number of years ago now that enabled us to do the renovations on the building so that we could all move in together and make this dream possible. So this year we celebrate 5 years in the building, and we celebrate paying off that loan, that $500,000 loan. We paid it off, and that's why we're here today. Thank you for your investment. And I'm going to turn it over to Shalina for a minute just to share with you some of what that journey has been together.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I had the privilege of being part of this project since its inception. I hope it's not reflecting my age that I'm still around here, but I want to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the history and how this all started. So back in the early 2000s, senior staff at Catholic Family Services started to dream and started to have conversations around, wouldn't it be nice to have social services located under the same roof? Wouldn't it be nice to be better at sharing resources, to increase access to families who need our services? And so that's where the conversation started. And we began to talk to partners. We began to talk to our politicians. We began to talk to our funders about this dream. And the community came together. People could make sense of this. So while we were dreaming about the Honorable William G. Davis Center for Families and starting some of the legwork, we also began to explore another model called the Family Justice Center, which originated in San Diego. And the whole concept of that model was to create a one-stop shop for victims of family violence. And we knew that Kitchener-Waterloo was successful, and we wanted to take an opportunity to explore it here. And we began with a needs assessment in our community. We talked to consumers of service. We talked to service providers. And on we heard that people said, if you could find a way to increase our access to services by being under the same roof, then it would make life so much easier and we would get through our journey of dealing with these issues. When we mapped out the number of places that people would need to go to get all of the services that they may require, it was 18 plus. Now, when you put someone in a situation of crisis, maybe with young children, maybe they don't speak the language, finances are an issue, and we're asking them to travel to 18 different places to get the help they need for themselves and their children. We needed to respond. We needed to let people know that we were hearing their concerns and we needed to do something about it. So in 2007, 2008, we started the process. And in 2011, we opened the Safe Center of Peel, which is an integrated hub within a hub. So we actually are so proud to be representing 2 community hubs here today. So we had 18 partner agencies who came together to develop this Made in Peel model. So we are very proud to say that we did not do this alone, that we had human service organizations around the table, we had the federal government, we had the provincial government, and most of all, we had our regional government. So this is a big thank you to all of you for your support, your ongoing partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Medeiros.
Thank you, through the chair. Certainly you've really described all the work that you've done, and having the opportunity to visit it and interact with the clients, and that's where I really have provide that impact, like the whole sort of integrated service model and the referrals and the ability to work together. That impressed me from that aspect. But when you meet a client and you see how they access the various services on there, really the community impact you can't underestimate. Really fabulous work that you do, and I know one thing I've sometimes that goes often unnoticed is what great community partners you are. How many events I attend, you folks are always there, always working hard, always present, and that really shows how you care about the community. So thank you very much. It's a real great work that you do, and it's just fabulous. Thank you very much.
One of the things that, if I can just add to what you're saying, 10 years ago when we began to dream this up, we weren't talking about community hubs in the province. And, it's really wonderful to see that we've been able to be, in a way, ahead of our time and to be able to innovate together across all of our government all supporters across all levels of government. So I just want to brag a little bit that when I go to the province, they say to me that Peel is the poster child for the integrated service model that we have here. So I think it's something that we have really to be proud of, and we could not have done it without the municipal support and support from the region and from all levels of government, and particularly from you.
Councillor Downey.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for coming here this morning. It's not very often that people come and say, don't ask, and they say they're bringing the funds back. I just wanted to say thank you to both of you for exactly that, for leading the way. When the province now is starting the discussion on community hubs, you're blazing the trail, and so that gives me pride in Peel as well. And I want to thank you for your support and guidance for projects in Caledon, and specifically the community hub that we're putting together in my ward. I appreciate that guidance from you and from all of your staff as well. It's been very helpful for us to bring different partners under that roof. We had the honor of having Karen Petrie come and join us at our groundbreaking this past Monday, so that was fantastic, having that representation from the province and that continued support, knowing that we're moving in the right direction. The beauty of bringing those services under one roof is that hubs in a hub, every door is the right door. The client shows up and is never turned away because they're not at the right spot at the right time. We always have the service to provide to them, so I thank you both for that.
Thank you. Mayor Thompson.
Well, I'd like to congratulate and call you the Mythbusters. I remember when you came to council, it wasn't, even from my own municipality, we were split on the support on this. But I have to say, you've proved through collaboration, you stuck to the plan, and look at where you are today, and you're even ahead of the agenda what you first proposed, so congratulations to you. But what I think it really showed is, yeah, you're the new innovators, especially of how community hubs, and it can work by collaborating with everybody and bringing everybody to the table. And also I want to do a shout out here too, is I want to thank you to the private sponsors and the companies and different businesses like the Longo family. There's so many, you're going to miss some. But I'm going to tell you, getting philanthropy there as well. And you had a good plan and a good vision. And what brought them, I asked them, what brought you to sponsor when you've had your open houses? They have all said it's because you had a plan including everybody. You're in a new inclusive community, and this is something to celebrate. But I know there's a lot of myths. It's the what ifs. There's a lot of what ifs around this table, and I think some of us can remember that. But you proved it. You proved you can. And I got to say, so many times when things get going, people change and they lose the focus. You've never took your eye off that brass ball. You got to the finish line, and job well done. And yes, you're saying thank you, but I got to say thank you to you for sticking to the disciplines that you had. And I know it's tempting many times to go other ways. So I want to compliment you on that. But I know it's supposed to be questions only. So here's my question is, you've been quite successful in collaborating, bringing people together. But every time I'm in there, you're pretty much at capacity, aren't you, at that site?
Yes, we are. We are. And people want to join us at the Honorable William G. Davis Center for Families, and we just run out of room. So my own dream is that we develop a network of hubs right across the entire region. So Caledon's broken ground. Can we network a series of hubs in strategic locations right across the region? I know right now I pay rent, for my Mississauga office. I pay rent for my office up in Caledon. I'd love the day when my rental dollar is an investment in another community hub, so that we really build the capacity and really truly have a social safety net that extends right across the region, so that when other regions look at us, when the province looks at us here in Peel Region, they're going to say they know how to do this right. And they know how to take care of the people who call Peel Region their home, so that we can take care of the big issues that face our community in terms of the poverty and the mental health issues. And I just think that we've shown that we can do it, and that we can only do it together. We can only do it with you and your support, and have our homegrown solution here in Peel Region.
Well done.
Thank you. Councillor Sprovieri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, I'd like to thank you two ladies for the great work you're doing. And actually, when I saw you, I remember you from 5 years ago. I thought maybe you were coming here asking us to forgive your loan. But surprise, surprise, it's a great story. And you have to be congratulated for achieving what you've done, and also for your vision of the future, because what you're doing is so important to all the communities in Peel Region, and hopefully we can help in the future again. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Jeffrey.
Congratulations. This has been a really long road, and having been at a part of the road at the beginning, I remember how many hurdles you crossed. And one of the biggest hurdles that most people wouldn't think of is the name. Catholic Family Services was not seen as a group that would offer services to everyone. And I think bringing Bill Davis into it really helped, because it flattened the vision of what that service would be, because it didn't give you a sense of who was behind the doors. And I think that was the challenge. In my former life as an MPP, it was so hard to sell this when you talked about Catholic Family Services, because it was seen as almost an orphan. Because every single ministry would say, well, that's their job, or that's their job. So to bring those kind of people together, for you, I do not see the scars of hitting your head against that brick wall over and over and over. And that, so you broke through the silos. You are a success story. I'm really proud of the work that you do and have done. And I appreciate that it is a success story, because there were lots of times when it didn't look like it was going to be. So to you and your team, I'm proud of you. I like the persistence. I like the tenacity. And I like the fact that you didn't take no for an answer. And our city, our community, our region is better for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and certainly on behalf of council, I know you came here today to to thank us, and as you've heard from council, we really have to thank you, and we have to thank you first for your vision, and certainly for your passion, and certainly for all of the the positive changes that you've made in so many lives throughout Peel. And we'll also want to thank you for the repayment of the loan.
You're most welcome. Thank you for the
All right.
investment in us, and we're happy to repay this loan.
Okay, I have a motion from Councillor Sprovieri, seconded by Mayor Jeffrey, for receipt of the deputation. All in favor? Carried. And then I understand you wanted a...
We have a check we'd like to give you.
Right. Yeah.
So if I can approach you, Regional Chair and Council, to present you with our check.
Should I go down? Our next delegation then is Lisa Blair, Client Relations Manager, Maple Ridge Community Management, on behalf of Peel Condominium Corporation 144, regarding PCC 144 Special Appeal to Regional Council for relief of its water and sewer charges.
Good morning, and
Welcome,
thank
Lisa.
you. As you said, I'm here today representing Peel Condominium Corporation number 144, which consists of 107 residential townhome units in the city of Brampton. We have been in conversation with the Region of Peel Water and Wastewater Service Department since November 2016. At the advice of Mr. Ralph, the manager of billing, on June 28, 2017, we wrote to the Region of Peel Clerk's Office with a special appeal request to Regional Council, which is why I'm here this morning. We're looking for consideration on the wastewater charges, not the water charges, that occurred in the last two quarters, the second and third quarter of 2016. We have presented a very comprehensive document outlining the sequence of events as well as what occurred. And I'm here to see if anybody has any questions on how we can help you to provide the corporation with a rebate or a reimbursement of $20,000. It's quite simple. We did prove that the water did not go down through the drain. We also have pictures showing that we had to do repairs to the asphalt because of the sinkholes. Does anyone have any questions?
I do have a councillor on the list. Councillor Miles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So this is the second condominium corporation in my ward that has experienced the same kind of difficulties. And basically, it's as a result of aging infrastructure. There's a breakdown in the infrastructure below the ground, and the condominium corporation is not aware of it because of regional policy that says they only receive their water bill every 3 months. So if we, in fact, were billing on a monthly basis then this would not have occurred. So I think that as a policy, it's something that we as a region do need to look at it, especially as some of the developments in our communities are aging. This kind of a situation would not occur if they were being billed on a monthly basis. I know this situation has come before council in the past. I do not know at any time that council has agreed to offer relief to the condominium corporation unless there's a situation that I'm not aware of. So, but I did like the fact that you, as a corporation, did not ask for us to give you relief on the full amount.
No.
That you asked for a split and to help absorb some of those costs on the condominium development. So I am going to put a motion on the floor to offer relief as requested in the amount of $20,000. But I know there will be some debate on that. But I would like to ask a question in regards to the policy that the region has, where there's only bills where we only allow condominium corporations to receive their water bill every 3 months, and if that isn't something that we could re-examine as a policy. So, through you, Mr. Chairman, if you could direct that question to
The Commissioner?
the Commissioner.
Okay. Jeanette?
Through the chair, certainly our billing policy is kind of based on volume. So there are customers that do get monthly bills because they have such volumes of water, and then the others are done on a quarterly basis. We can certainly go back and look at for condominium corporations going to monthly. I'd have to look at the resource allocations. Part of it is the more bills you send out, the more staff you need. So if it's a few, may not have an impact. If it's a large number going to that, then I may be in front of you asking for more staff. But we can certainly go back and look at that. And we have changed. Every year we view people's volumes of waters, and some people move from quarterly to monthly. They request things.
Do you know if the insurance policy that was being offered to residential development would be applicable for condominium corps?
I did check that out, and no, it is not,
Oh,
because of the
okay.
bulk billing service.
Okay.
I know. We tried almost everything on that part.
Okay. I do think in communities where we do have that aging infrastructure, and I think Guildford is probably close to 50 years old, that, you can expect the infrastructure to start having some kind of a breakdown, and maybe we should be looking at that. So with that, I'll wait to hear the other speakers.
Thank you. Councillor Starr?
Yeah, the question I have, Mr. Chair, is more ability to do that. And that's how they catch some of these, cannabis houses. And that's very visible when it exceeds the consumption by, say, 2 years or say 2-3 times over that. There's a spike and it automatically kicks it out. Do we have that?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. We do have a review process. So if we see a high bill come in and we screen every read for high or low, we do a notification process, and we actually have field reps that will go out and meet with residents to try to help identify where their issue was. I believe in this case we did send someone out once we realized it was a high bill. The difference between ourselves and Hydro is we only read whether it be monthly or every 3 months, so that screening occurs in the case of a 3-month read 3 months into that potential situation, where Hydro's, because they're on a time of use meter, that's a radio frequency meter that comes right to them, they can do it on a much faster basis.
I guess the question I'm asking is that if this billing came through, and this, from what I read in the report, there were 2 high billings, is that right?
Correct.
And so did you were you able to see that great big spike, 10 times the normal, and say, you better call these people right away?
Yes, we did. We did have it on our low risk, and I believe we were in contact with the corporation.
After we received the first high bill.
Yeah.
Once we received the high bill, because we received it, so we knew, we said something's wrong. And the good part about this is we have 17 blocks, so we have 17 separate invoices or billings. So we were able to identify which block had the leak. It took us almost 2 months after that to identify the exact location of the leak, because as per my report, the pipes were bored through the foundation walls, which is highly unlikely and was not supposed to happen. So the water detectors could not pinpoint the leak for almost 2 months. By that time, you're into the third billing. So we've already experienced the second billing, which showed us we had a leak. That's when we were notified. And so, and into the third quarter is when we resolved the problem. And the fourth quarter, we went back to normal, as per the invoices I provided.
Okay, as soon as you got that billing, how soon right after that billing did you contact somebody in water detection or?
Immediately.
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 Yeah. And if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, we do send the bills out. Like, if we have a high bill, we still send that bill out, but we follow up with the organization to, advise them they've got a high bill coming, and then second of all, of course, to see how we can assist them on finding that leak.
We don't recall that happening in this
Well,
circumstance.
I do know we had people, I believe, actually on property and attended the property, and unfortunately, there was an access issue, and then we came back and attended a second time.
Townhomes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can have some empathy because I know that happened to one of my sprinkler systems, and I didn't notice it until I got my next 2-month bill, and I said, "Wow!" Just a minute, it went from $60 to $600, but I asked you the question specifically: how soon did you go? Because I had the people come in and they found the leak, it broke, and being on a gravel base, I would have never found it in 100 years.
It was very, very difficult. We had people dispatched immediately, and they could not locate it, and we had another second group, and as a matter of fact, I believe the vendors we used actually used the region's water detector vendors, and they're the ones who actually found it, and because it was between two walls. Like I said, the pipe was literally in the wall, which it should not have been. It should have been under the foundation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Sato.
Thank you. I have great sympathy for what you're going through, but
Well, the owners are going through it.
But we have had other residents who've come here to council over the years, individual residents with enormous bills where they had a leak that they didn't recognize, and while we can offer sympathy, unfortunately, we can't offer money. And I don't think we should be, because if we did approve that, I think we all have a list of residents in our own wards who would be lining up to make the same request. So we have to be very careful. What we did do, and if I recall, the most recent was probably quite a few years ago, a resident did come and had a large bill, and we usually do charge interest on the bill, and it's required to be paid a certain amount of time. But we did give direction from council at that time, and in previous situations, for staff to show some leniency in the repayment of the bill, to reduce the payments, and perhaps give some leniency on the interest on the payments when people are hit with such a large situation like this. So, Jeanette, is that something that staff have offered, or do you need direction from us today to do that?
We do that on a regular basis.
Okay.
So, for example, if a resident, for example, wants to come delegate, we won't charge interest charges in their period of coming because it's kind of stayed. Our intent is never to, force someone out of their homes because they can't afford to pay their water bills. So we work out a whole variable number of payment plans to support them to pay. I'm very confident staff do that.
Do we ever waive the interest? I know you said you can waive the interest during that period. Do we ever waive the interest over a longer period of time?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Our standard process is to waive the interest or that penalty, which is what we call it, for probably up to about a year to year and a half.
Okay.
But I will mention there have been extenuating circumstances where it's an extreme case, and we'll do it as far as 5 years.
Okay.
But again, it's just the interest or any fees that we may have. the actual cost of the water we do still collect.
Okay, well, I think that is being fair to everyone. It's being consistent with what we have done with other individual residents that have come forward in single-family homes. I think it's very unfortunate, but, you know, we have told residents that anything that happens on your property, it's your private pipes, and you cannot expect the rest of the taxpayers to be responsible for the costs that you incur for anything that happens on your private property. So while we can sympathize, and I know none of us would like to be in that situation, I think by waiving the interest and extending those payment periods out, I think we'll at least give some assistance. And I think staff are willing to do that, and they have the authority to do that, so we don't need to give direction today. Thank you.
If I may, as per my report, the bill has been paid. This corporation is on pre-authorized payment, so it was automatically taken out of the corporation's account, and funds had to be transferred over in order to accommodate the second payment. So we didn't want to incur any penalties for late payment, so the bills were, like I said, automatically taken out. So what we're looking for is not the water consumption portion of it, but the sewer, because we amply proved that the water did not go down the sewer. I appreciate it.
Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too share the same concerns Councillor Sato raised. I mean, I'm sure that we do this one, and thank you for coming in. The concern I have is that we will be getting a lot more of these requests if we do that. So I guess I'm wondering through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, and we probably can give direction to staff to look at reviewing the way we do the billings, the methodology that we use to do this, because things like, I don't know, watering your lawn, swimming pools, all those sorts of things sort of becomes a problem. When you receive the bill, you really don't know how much of that water you're using and that. So, Jeanette, I don't know if there's something that staff could look at doing.
Through the chair, Councillor Groves, and the rest of council, certainly every few years we do as staff bring back to council a review of our methodology about how we do our billing, because to fully allocate out both our water and our wastewater operations and maintenance fees, we have to look at a number of factors: actual usage, things like we have a large amount of fixed costs, and then we have the variable. So what I would recommend is we are due for another review, that we initiate that, and then we'll bring it back to council.
Okay, so will you be looking at through the review process the changing the dates of the billing?
Well, we
That's
can
like-
certainly look at that. We're moving to radio frequency as our infrastructure needs changeover. So that will give us the ability to do more frequent bills without having to have a whole other army of staff out to do the work.
Right.
So we can provide an update on that at the same time.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. And again, thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad that Councillor Groves asked that question, because I was hoping that staff would be reporting back. There's a lot of different types of condominiums. I live in a condominium. Each one of our condominium units gets their own bill. And a few years ago, we had an incident where there was a leak under somebody's garage. The garage was sinking. The region wouldn't come in to shut it off. We had to get, by the time you get somebody in the business to come in and shut it off, it's still leaking. And of course, the owner of the property had a large bill, and the condominium fixed the garage floor. So I like to hear more when you report back about how we treat the condominiums as they're in, because they're different. Every condominium is different. In this case, this condominium gets one bill for all the units. In my case,
17 bills.
Yeah, 17 bills. For how many units?
107.
Yeah. Well, in our case, we have 44 units. We get 44 bills.
Mm-hmm.
Each individual gets the bill and is responsible for that. So there's different scenarios in each different condominium and how that works. The bottom line is it's private property. That's what I was told. That's what I was told when I looked into this years ago. I wasn't even a regional councilor. I just called the region and said, we got a regional water shutoff valve. Can you come in and shut it off? And the region said, no. I just thought it was a regional shut-off valve. It's not. It's private property. It's yours. So we had to call somebody in. So long story short, there's a lot of different types of condominiums out there. I'd like to hear more about how they're, to make sure they're all treated equally. Unfortunately, in this case, we're not going to be able to give any money back. I think that's pretty obvious. But I'm glad to hear that the staff shows some flexibility when there is large bills like this, and we already know that they do. Every one of us, somebody has said, has had all these. We've all had them. Councilor Moore and I just dealt with one this week, a big, huge bill. We're not going to forgive it, but the region is at least flexible on the charges and things like that and how it's get paid back. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sprovieri.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thanks for coming before us. We've had many people like you come here, and unfortunately, no one ever received any sympathy, although I've been understanding sometimes. I'd like to have a question. When were your condominium buildings built, the development?
Just over 35 years old.
35 years ago. And through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask staff whether this kind of plumbing would be inspected by the municipality, whether either now or then. Is that something that's part of the inspection process, where to make sure that the plumbing is done correctly?
Through you, no. The region of Peel, we are responsible for.
I understand the region does, but I believe the municipality is required to do the inspections.
Building inspector.
Yeah, through the chair, when it's originally built, because it's on private property, it would go through a building inspector, and there's the plumbing code that it would have to follow. Remembering that 35 years ago, the plumbing code was a different code than it is today. But any future inspections after it's built, because it's on private property, and technically it's considered a private water system, that falls under the responsibility of the owner.
Okay. Through the chair, the other question I have is the water bill is divided in two sections. One is for consumption, one is for disposal and treatment. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes. I can explain the methodology if you'd like.
Well, just let me ask my question.
Okay.
And in this particular situation where there was consumption, wasted consumption, but the water never got treated because it went into the ground. So in a situation like that, isn't there some sympathy that can be given because there was actually no cost to the region for treating the water that went into the ground?
Through the chair, you're quite right. We don't meter the water going out. We use a proxy to say on actual usage. That's the methodology we've used for years. So it's 85% at a residential level because we assume some water is used to water the grass, etc. What we're finding, though, and I'm bringing a report and presentation to council in 2 weeks, is that we have a significant issue with inflow and infiltration. So water that goes into the ground, not through the drain or whatever, is getting into our wastewater system. And it's starting to significantly impact the capacity of our system. So in my budget request this year, you will see we're going to be making some investments on the wastewater side to deal with the inflow and infiltration. So the challenge is when we get requests to waive the fees because they say it didn't go down the drain, it probably still got into our wastewater system through that whole inflow and infiltration. And so it is getting in. I can't tell you how much. And so I'd have no ability to give you an estimate. And what happens is we get requests like this quite often, either sometimes with a high water bill and sometimes with even no water leakage. They'll still ask us to waive that portion, and we have no ability to really, at the end of the day, tell you how much got in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I do have a motion before me, moved by Councillor Miles and seconded by Councillor Councillor Medeiros, that Peel Condominium Corporation number 144 be granted relief of its wastewater charge in the amount of $20,000 as requested in their communication listed as item 13.1 on the September 14, 2017 Regional Council agenda. And this will require a recorded vote, so make your selection, please.
I think they're all getting used to the buttons.
Councillors, or Mayor Crombie and Councillor Tovey are absent for the vote. It's defeated.
The motion has been defeated.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, moving along then, it brings us to items related to health, and I'd ask that Councillor Moore chair this section, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Our first item is 6.1, and we have a presentation by Kathy Granger, Director of Long-Term Care. The report is before you. Welcome, Kathy. And Dr. Sinhas, welcome. Oh, Dr. Saha, I apologize.
Good morning, members of council. As Councillor Moore said, it's Kathy Granger. I'm the Director of Long-Term Care, and I'm happy to be here this morning with Dr. Sept Saha, who is not only our Senior Medical Director for Long-Term Care in the region of Peel, he's also the Medical Director and Corporate Chief and for the Seniors Health System at William Ulster, so we're happy to have him working with us. We're here today to share results of our annual performance management report for long-term care. Having a robust performance management system allows us to continually track the quality of life for our residents and ensure we are continuously improving the level of person-centered care and continuing to strive towards service excellence. As we've highlighted in recent council reports, recent provincial investments in community and home care have enabled seniors to be cared in their home for a much longer period, which for the healthcare sector in general is a positive thing. It reduces pressures on hospital and delays the need for long-term care. What it's meant for us in long-term care, however, is that our residents are entering in a much more frail state and much more elderly, much more cognitively impaired, and with much more chronic and acute issues. Additionally, in the region of Peel, and in line with our strategic direction from the Aging Population Steering Committee, the region delivers long-term care services that include a focus on specialty services, which means that we take in residents that have special needs and more acute needs than private and other nonprofit homes would see. So as such, and as you can see before you in your statistics, what it means for our residents is that 44% of them are over the age of 85. 4 out of 5 are extensively or totally dependent on staff requiring assistance in many activities of daily living. Only 18% experience improvements in their ability to move or transfer, and almost 2/3 were diagnosed with dementia. So these statistics reinforce the need for continuous monitoring and improvement of the care that we provide for our residents, and we need to continue to be quite vigilant. As part of our performance management system, our 5 long-term care centres participate in a voluntary accreditation process every 3 years through the Commission of Accreditation on Rehabilitation Facilities. Accreditation is recognized as a quality improvement indicator through the lens. And I'm happy to announce that all 5 Region of Peel Care Centres, which includes our adult day centres, were recently recognized and awarded with another 3-year designation, which is the highest designation that an organization can receive. In Ontario, additionally, the Ministry of Health grants accredited long-term care homes with a small subsidy. So what this means for the Region of Peel is that we will receive an additional $85,000 annually from the ministry. Secondly, each year we go through an annual resident quality inspection to ensure that our compliance with the Act's legislative and regulatory requirements. In 2016, the number of our non-compliance findings with this inspection went down from an average of less than 10 per home compared to 17 per home in the previous years. So while this is a positive thing, we still have work to do. As you can see again from the stats in front of you, We still have work to do in our improved physical functioning and use of inappropriate use of antipsychotics. So what this means is that we continue to need to focus on our enhanced complex care model, which Dr. Saha will be happy to discuss with you right now.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you to members of Council for giving us the opportunity to come back and talk to you today. It gives me no joy to tell you that as of this morning, there is no cure for aging. As Chief of Geriatrics, I check frequently. With that background information, we will concentrate on the task at hand. As you may be aware, the Central West Lynn has the dubious distinction of being the Lynn with the largest rise in the prevalence of dementia in the course of the next 5 years, approximately 48%. At the clinical front line, we are already beginning to see the emergence of that statistic with the larger prevalence of more complex dementia patients who have much more complex care needs and who are much more difficult to handle. On the background of this vulnerable population, I would like to say that the region of Peel does an excellent job in looking after this particularly difficult group of patients, and some of our statistics prove that. I'm not going to disagree with the fact that there is still work to be done, although I would suggest to you that we are well prepared and are looking at things from a significant amount of granularity on where there are options for us to improve. From the perspective of the antipsychotic usage, these numbers are influenced by the fact that we have a behavioral unit in the context of our homes. However, I will also state that based upon further collaboration with our pharmacy providers, we are looking at this with a lot more scrutiny and will be taking measures to make sure that this does come down. I'd also like to state that, in my opinion, the Ministry's funding model for long-term care appears to be outdated in the context of the kind of patients that we now look after. And we are only able to achieve what we have done by generous support from yourselves, and for this I would like to thank you. We are now in a position to start seeing some of the statistics in terms of the first round of collection of data from the Spark model that we have been trialing on some of our most complex patients. And I'm happy to report to you that the data is extremely encouraging, which suggests that the methodology that we have put forward for the treatment of this very complex group appears to be working well. In terms of going forward, I think, as you may be aware and as we have presented to you before, we are in the process of enacting a more individualized form of care for a lot of these residents, and that would include the butterfly model that we have presented to you before. They would also include the Montessori techniques that are currently ongoing. We have been pleased to have received funding from the LIN for a new methodology of looking at complex dementia patients with the incorporation of something called the neurobehavioral nurse practitioners, and they are now on the field and are making a significant difference from what I'm told in the context of managing of these patients. We have also received additional funding from the Ministry for Behavioural Supports Ontario, which we will be looking to incorporate into real changes in the front line in the course of the coming year. I remain optimistic, as I've told you before, that we are looking to further collaborate with our pharmacy providers to look at our antipsychotic prescribing and see how we can better that. Lastly, I would like to say that we would like to use the opportunity of the specialized geriatric clinics that we have at Peel Memorial Hospital to foster a strong collaboration between our homes and these subspecialty clinics, so that we have a situation where individuals in long-term care really don't need to go to long-term care unless absolutely necessary, because we are all aware that hospitals, or acute hospitals in particular, are terrible places for these vulnerable people. So that's the mandate in terms of going forward. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Our first is Councillor Gibson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, I'm very disappointed that you can't come up with a cure for aging. I was relying on that for my retirement. I might as well just keep running now. Put a downer, Debbie Downer there. Really, congratulations on the designation, additional money. Job well done. And I'm very proud of the Region of Peel, too, on the recognition of the problem in dementia. and what we're doing towards that. It's, sometimes we wait way too long, and maybe in this case, everybody's waited way too long. It's such a big issue here for us, and I have to congratulate you on recognizing the problem and what we're doing and going forward. And you know, Councillor Moore and I are very proud of what we're accomplishing in Peel Manor. And once that's finished, that's going to be a huge accomplishment, I think, for the region of Peel and dealing with dementia. I have two questions. I'm going to give you a chance to tout a little bit and give us some more details. How will we determine the success of the butterfly model, and how are we hoping that it will reflect in our next performance management system?
In terms of objective assessments for complex dementia patients for which it looks to be a solution from a behavioral intervention perspective, the general tool that we use is the NPI inventory, which is called the neuropsychiatric inventory, which gauges behaviors and grades them in terms of a scale. So one of the objectivity measures that we would look at is where their scale was at the start of the study and where they are in terms of the scale at the end of the study.
Mm-hmm. And if I could just add additional to that, the indicators that we will track for that pilot are the same indicators that we track across our homes and that are tracked across the province. So we'll be able to get a really good viewpoint in terms of how the models, the impact of the model.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for the good work.
Councillor Miles.
Thank you very much. I too want to thank and congratulate you on the work that you're doing in long-term care. And certainly, Dr. Saha, you are such a welcome addition to the region of Peel, and the fact that you are directly connected to our hospital, William Osler, I think is an added benefit to us, because you then are able to deal with the care of patients, not only in long-term care, but also recognize what's happening within the hospital setting, which is so important. So I can only encourage you to continue on the journey that you're taking, looking for better ways to provide patient-centered care for our aging adults, and commend you for, I think, the compassionate caring that our residents are getting in long-term care centres across the region of Peel.
Councillor, thank you very much for your kind words.
You're welcome.
Councillor Ionica.
Thank you. With apologies in advance, because you're sort of tangential at the end of the line of what I'm going to speak to, but this is fresh on my mind because of some of my travels this summer. And I've been waiting for the opportunity. I want to write the paper, but you've given me my segue to speak to, I think, the biggest challenge that we will face in the next generation. Regrettably, you're at the tail end and you'll be facing the output of all the problems of this generation. If I can speak to the proverbial boy or girl with all his fingers and everything else in the dike and the dam's going to break, the dam's virtually broken, and Harvey and Irma are coming relative to having to look to aging seniors. And I've looked at it in my mind every which way, and you're coping, but you're not the solution. And the big problem we have is a land use planning problem. And you're the benefactor, so to speak, of that. We have built communities where pedestrians and citizens cannot age in place. That's why I'm such a fan of the European model. We've got it wrong at the city of Mississauga as well, where we recently got a report about the first and the last kilometer. What do I do to get you from suburbia, where you live, a kilometer, 2 kilometers away to the main transit line so that you can then be on your way? Europeans laugh at us when they say that, because they go, you morons. The solution isn't getting them from here to there. You build between here and there. You put medium high density there so that they're on the nodes that provide the services that they need. It is a fact, with respect to everyone, that our biggest problem is that as we age, we're outliving our bodies, our minds, our money, or a combination of all of the above. For the first time in the history of Canada, we have more people over 65 years old than are under 18. And, you know, I extrapolate little bits from what I read here, what I hear there. Let me throw another zinger in for you. I call it the paradox of wealth. You start making money, you stop having children. Father technically lived under the poverty line. I only learned that when I got my economics degree, but he managed to put the 4 of us through university. And my wife and I scramble at 4 times the income to say, how do we pay for these 2 kids? We should be embarrassed, and I think many others should be, but they manage to cope, we don't. But that's another. The point being, you don't have the same family support structure. New York Times, great article about a month ago. The millennials have two fundamental detachments that we do not have. They're not tied to cars, and you're learning that, and they're not tied to place. So that evening with my kids around the table, I say, you know, I read this article, maybe I'll express it this way. I was born in Cooksville, I'll die in Cooksville. It's given me all the privileges of my life. You kids that have had a great life, do you see yourselves living here all your life? Oh, hell no, Dad. Oh, didn't take much thought. Oh, no, if I did a great job in San Diego or if I have an opportunity, or I'm gone, Dad. Didn't bat an eyelash. Multiply that times the millions, not the hundreds of thousands of people that are going to be in that predicament. I can solve it, land use, but nobody wants the buildings or the medium density. That's our biggest problem. We haven't built medium density at all where it should be. Communities where I go back to the first and last kilometer. In Paris, you can fulfill virtually every human need in the first 500 meters. It was designed that way. So the old person can age in place, can walk out their door and pick up a loaf of bread, can walk over here and get to the dentist. And we're talking about bridging the kilometer. Who the hell's going to walk that kilometer? So it comes down to land use planning. We can also solve it another way with immigration. Try and sell that to certain segments of the public. But it's the solution. And of course, they let my people in. I would hope we'd let more people in and let them contribute to this economy and the great lives that we've had. So my point is, and this is another one, it was marvelous. Two thoughts that also, different sources. The conference I recently attended, they were talking about, ready for it, rationing lanes of transportation. I mentioned it to Councillor Carlson. Growing up as a North American, when you talk about rationing, the only context I've ever heard of rationing is when I read history about time of war. North Americans don't ration anything. You turn on the faucet, it runs, land is available, I get in my car, I go where I want. They were talking about rationing lanes of traffic, rationing boulevards. How much does the pedestrian own? How much does the merchant with the patio have a right to? How many lanes of traffic belong to dedicated? We don't think in those terms. We don't have to ration anything. The day has come where we should be rationing things. Report out of Toronto a little while ago, the GTAA, 1.4 million empty bedrooms in the GTAA. How many of you have empty bedrooms in your home? I technically have 2. Go to any big city in the world, go to Paris and see if they have 1.4 million. They don't allow for it. They ration them. That's an asset. So now I can move people in. In conclusion, when you put it all together, and this is the problem, I can't come to a conclusion. How do we get everybody in the room that's involved in the solution? Because it's land use planning, it's social services, it's medical services, etc. What we just do is build more institutions. And I'll get you trans help over there. Well, now, Mrs. Oliveri, who lives in my ward, who raised her family of 5, way off the grid, wants to age in place and die in the maternal home. She's got 4 empty bedrooms, and she says, Nanda, won't trans help come here 3 times a week, 3 times a day? Won't Meals on Wheels bring me food? If I have I can't. I've got to move you over to Dundas and Highway 10. And maybe some other family uses your home that needs it. But there's so many moving parts, and the solutions bump up against it. I want to age in place in my suburban home. Maybe that's a luxury you're not entitled to anymore. And maybe we've got to bite the bullets and say, you know what, we do have to start building in those corridors and tell people we can't accommodate your needs. You have to be part of the solution. And the solution is we have to learn to live in 1,000 square feet along a main transportation corridor. Mixed-use planning. Again, that's not your bailiwick, but you're the end of the line that say, but it all comes down to us. So we have a big problem. And as I say, the only solution is we can't keep sending you more money and building more institutions. Though that's the business you're in, and I understand that you do it very, very well. But it's time that we sit down and say everybody involved in this has got to bite the bullet and say intensification, transportation corridors, walkable communities, mixed-use planning. There's nothing wrong with living above a bakery like the Europeans do. And I close with that joke that you've heard me say before because I pick on it for a reason. Lovely couple that went overseas and were oh, Nanda, we were in, and it was amazing. It was 6 floors, and on our floor, you know, I think a dentist worked down the hall from where we were, and there was this bakery downstairs. And I said, wasn't that funny? Because I'm trying to do that in Cooksville. They go, are you a barbarian? Those bakers are up at 3 in the morning and they're banging their car doors. Oh God, no, we don't want that near us. Well, you just spent $20,000 to tell me how amazing it was in Europe, and you don't want it next door to you. It's the only solution relative to all the problems that we have. And so at some point, I'm going to write this article that I keep saying I'm going to write it, but every time I get started, it becomes Dante's Inferno. So we've got to sit a bunch of people in a room and say, the regional chairs, the regional staff, the city staff, and say, we had better bite the bullet and realize we have a ticking time bomb on our hands, because we cannot solve it with more institutions. We can't solve it building more subsidized housing. We have to let people solve their problems themselves with their two legs, the simplest ambient, but make it, but don't worry, you cover this kilometer and we've solved it. I want to have done everything I need to do within that kilometer. And yet our solution, no, the first and last, but we'll solve it. That's not the remedy. The remedy is looking after that space so that people can sustain themselves, because there won't be enough of us to look after them, and there won't be enough of us paying taxes to look after them. So that's where my mind's been all summer, and more to come. Thank you. Yeah. Thank
Well,
you.
I will say at 8 minutes and 50 seconds,
Sorry.
you came within your ration time of 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you both for your presentation, and I decided I'm not going past 35, so I'm holding there. No.
For years.
Years.
You got a way to go.
Thank you. Dr. Saha, you mentioned about the butterfly program, and I think that's a great program, because when we had the presentation here, one of the things that I was especially interested in is the fact that the use of medication declined with those patients that they had the butterfly model. So I think that's a great idea, because what happens oftentimes, it's easy to give somebody medication and calm them down, zone them out, and then they're not there. They're there, but they're not really there. So just curious though, where are we with the pilot? When can we expect to see something back here on that pilot?
I can answer that. So it is a full one-year evaluation. Right now, we're coming up to our 6-month midterm review, so that'll be at the end of September, and Dr. Sheard will be coming to our home to assess our home. We've made quite a few changes, lots of staff training we've been focusing on, and starting to make some of the structural changes that Dr. Sheard had talked to you about. Certainly the walls of our unit are all colored. Okay. So it's become much more livelier. Staff are starting to have meals with residents and dressing in street clothes and pajamas in the evening. So certainly some of the changes have coming, and we're seeing some good qualitative results from our residents in terms of how they're interacting. And it's, so we're really seeing some positive results. So we look forward to coming back and giving you a full full outcomes, probably in April next year.
Great, and I look forward to having those results as well. The other thing that I want to talk about is the PSW issue. And we've had presentations here, and every opportunity that I get, I do talk about PSW workers, because there are challenges around it. There are challenges around the funding. There are challenges around the availability, the number of hours that they're available. And as you indicated and the census indicates, we are all getting older. We have more people dealing with dementia than we did prior. So I think that this is something that we really need to look at. One of the things and the challenge that a lot of seniors are facing is PSWs that they've had for a long time are now pulled out of there, moved somewhere else, and they're bringing in new people in there. And so for a senior, it's very disruptive to them, because they build a relationship with a particular worker that understands them, understands medication, understands when to give them the medication, has it all figured out. And I've had a senior that had a new PSW worker and mixed up her medication. That's not good. That becomes a problem. So where are you, or how are you working? And I know the LINS has looked at a different model where they're now bringing in the CCACs in-house, saving $10.6 million, I believe they said. And so while that's great, I think there's still a lot of work to be done. So are you working with the Central West LIN around this particular issue? You talked about the funding model, Dr. Saha, and that the province has. And it, to me, is outdated, because we're aging. And so that model needs to reflect the aging population, and I don't see it. So is this something that you're working with the Central West Lynn on? Because I have a real problem with the PSW worker, the shortage and the number of hours that are limited to these folks who are truly needing that service today.
Well, I certainly see evidence of this on a daily basis in clinic or in hospital, where families are desirous of more PSW support, and in my informed opinion would probably do better with more PSW support. But I think the funding allocation, certainly specific to this region, does not support that level of support. I think we have a task on hand, and I would look to support from this table to try and help us to convince the ministry that the funding allocation that this region receives is not accurate for the population that now dwells here. So that's an argument we all need to make, and that's perhaps an arithmetic that needs to be revised at the ministry level so that more funding is available to the LIN in the context of PSW support, for sure.
Commissioner Polsinelli, did you want to offer comments on this? Oh, now you're off the board.
No, that's okay. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add, and not to interrupt Dr. Saha, when we're looking at the long-term care sector with our PSWs, I'm not going to argue that we're always in need of more support within long-term care. But to your point about the changing of staff, as part of our Long-Term Care Homes Act, we need to ensure continuity of care, so you'll get less of that. You'll have PSWs with residents and the opportunity to form a bond because they're together at a full-time capacity. Part, I think, of what you're speaking to is conversations that have been had with CCAC and the staffing model there and the funding need as well. So just wanted to clarify that while both are important, funding for PSWs is important, and we've had many conversations about home and community care through the lens. For long-term care, that continuity of care remains. It's a little different than home and community care where PSWs may rotate.
Okay, thank you. And just so you know, Dr. Saha, and I'm sure Councillor Parrish is on the board to speak, she is leading the charge on our Fair Share of Funding campaign, which I'm sure I won't speak for Councillor Parrish, but I'll let her tell you all about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Groves. Mayor Jeffrey.
Good morning. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Dr. Saha. And I apologize for you sitting for so many hours waiting to talk to us about such an important issue, because I actually know how many patients you could have seen. So I'm really sorry, but this is an important issue, and we're really glad you're here, and we're glad that you're champions and you continue to be champions. And I think one of the challenges, and I don't expect an answer from you, is when you're navigating this system, as many of us know, and you've heard from around the table, not all healthcare providers are rowing in the same direction, and there are gaps in those services. So I appreciate that you're helping us understand this issue better, but I guess it is a question. How are you going to get all the other healthcare providers to help you do what we know is working in Peel?
When you say other healthcare providers, what would you mean? What would you suggest? I mean, my impression on this is, and again, this is why I was happy in the context of what we were doing with Spark. I believe in compassionate evidence-based care, and our job in the context of being at the front line to look at things innovatively is to collect data and to publish data, and thereby make people aware as regards to the fact that, this is what we did, this is the data, and that proves what we are doing.
And in addition to that, we will be presenting at our provincial conference both the butterfly model sometime next year and some of the work that Dr. Saha is doing. So we do see that as very important to share the results and share the work we're doing. We meet regularly with our provincial advocacy group because they're aware of the butterfly model as well and are looking forward to the results in order to inform advocacy with the province going forward. So certainly we feel that's an important role we play as well as leaders.
I guess what I'm talking about is not the research and not the story that you're telling about how you're evolving care for seniors, but what happens today in an emergency room or in a doctor's office or in a specialist's office. They don't talk to each other, and that challenge makes it harder for you to get as good a results as you can. And I don't expect an answer, but that's unfortunately my personal experience, and it is a challenge even when you know what they should be doing. They're not all talking to each other. I love the fact that you're bringing the pharmacological piece into this. I think it's really important. Any chance you can look at what people are taking to make sure it's still doing what it's supposed to do and that there isn't an overreaction, I think is very helpful because it's so complex. I would agree with some of my colleagues that the planning is very important, but I think the most important thing is funding. Funding speaks to everything, and not only is the model outdated, it's not fair. So Dr. Saha and I have spoken a couple of times, and I've talked, my council and I went to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, tried to talk to somebody from the Ministry of Health, and no one was available. But I will be going down to Queen's Park in the coming weeks. I was trying to wait and not scare Brendan Carr, the new CAO of William Osler. When you come into the job, you're drinking from the fire hose. There's too much coming at you. So I thought I'll meet him, and then I'll say, hey, would you come with me to Queen's Park? So we're going with the Central West Lynn leader, Scott McLeod. Dr. Saha, I'd like to formally invite you to come with us to explain the challenges that you're experiencing, particularly with our elderly. And we have a huge growing region, and I can only speak specifically to the healthcare that we have, whether it's Peel or Brampton Civic, and it's just not serving our elderly well enough at all. When you have gridlock every week in our local hospital, that's not good enough for me. It's disruptive. If you're older, continuity is helpful. The less disruption is helpful, and it doesn't matter how good a physician or gerontologist you are, you can't manage that kind of chaos in someone's life without resources. And we need those resources. We deserve those resources. And so I'm going to go down in the next couple of weeks, and I'll try and work it around your schedule. But I may be at the mercy of the timing that we can get in to see Minister Hoskins. But this is an emergency. This is a crisis. And the work that you're doing is so important, so impactful, and makes such a difference to people's quality of life that it's God's work, you know? You're helping the frail and the elderly when they're really desperate and they don't have a champion. So I'm really glad you're their champion, and thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for giving us such a good report as to where you think we are and where you think we're going, and appreciate that the investments that this region is making are helpful. So thank you.
And through you, Madam Chair, I'll just add one more thing, Mayor Jeffries. It certainly is in our long-term plan to work with paramedics and also our family docs in terms of how we move forward, working together with this population so that we're all heading down the same path towards service excellence. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much. Councillor Parrish.
Yeah, I was interested in page 6, 1-4, staff engagement. You seem to have a very high level of positive feedback from your staff, and I know they're under a lot of strain. It must be a very difficult job on a day-to-day basis. You distinguish between full-time employees by saying that you report sick time for full-time employees. You don't give us any stats on how many are part-time and how many are full-time. Do you have those statistics at your fingertips?
Not off the top of my head, but I can certainly bring those forward. Do you?
So you don't know if it's 50-50 or? No, you don't have it?
Do you know?
Through you, sorry. Through you, Madam Chair, I can find that information for you, Councillor Parrish. I don't have it with me.
Okay, I would really appreciate that, because I think retaining full-time employees in this field is probably exactly what you want to do. And having a lot of part-time employees is probably a problem with bonding and all the rest of it. My mom was in one of our homes, and there was one lady there that took care of her like you wouldn't believe. I think she cared more about her being there than when I visited. I was being quite ignored. So I think it's important, and I'd like to know what the breakdown is.
Yeah, I'll get that to you. And I do agree with you. We are looking at different strategies in terms of changing some of our part-time positions into long-term, full-time positions. So we are starting to look at that, because I do agree with you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Starr.
Yeah, I was going to take a segue from Councillor Yanika's discussion, but I forgot what he said. But anyway, but tagging on to that, in Mississauga, there's been, now there's the Evergreen facilities, which is a aging in place, where they have a condo where they prefer you to be over 55, and then you can maybe you can take a townhouse, and then maybe you can go into the long-term care and right into the intensive care. And that model is not new. The only problem is that we have is from the municipal sector and the government sector who don't support that sort of building program. That's what I find. Ivan Franco, by the way, I'm not sure whose ward that is, they're going to go through the same thing. They've asked me, being Ukrainian, to sit on their committee. They're going to intensify. And they have a lot of land. The usual model was 2-3 stories, and that's what I think we felt as municipal administrators and planning staff and building staff, saying that's all we need. How about a building that the Yi Hong Center is proposing, again in my ward, and they have 3 other facilities in Scarborough and Markham, and now in Mississauga they proposed a 20-story retirement facility. Not one tower, another one 16. Well, what greater, better use of the land and to get the intensification that we talk about? Yet the first thing in the very first meeting we had with our staff 2 years ago was, oh, well, we've never done one like this. You know, I'm tired of hearing, well, we can't do it, we've never done it this way, and the policy is. And I think, tagging on to what Councillor Yanika said, we have to get out of that silo. There's 2 silos. There's the care side and the bricks and mortar side. Well, we better try to meld them together and say, how can we use all this efficiently? And seeing this for the 3rd time now, and by the way, in my other life in Hamilton, we had a property which we wanted to do exactly what you're talking about in partnership with somebody else. City of Hamilton, 8 years ago, turned us down. Didn't like it. We don't need towers for seniors. We don't need, aging in place. And yet the numbers showed the lack of facilities, throughout the province. So, it's an attitude problem. And I go right back to Councillor Yanika's discussion. We have to change that. And I think, our attitudes and with staff especially to say, think out of the box. I mean, the province is still expecting us to take, 150,000 in Mississauga, 190,000 people more. And as soon as Brampton gets built out, they'll come back to you and say, oh, you got to take another 200. So it's all about intensification. And I think this field, we're stuck in that mire of not being able to do it, and the list grows on. And unfortunately, because we are aging, and longer and longer, and any of us who go to the homes, I'm presenting more certificates at 80 years, 85 years old. I presented one the other day to a couple that live in one of the homes, 65 years married, and they're living together. Well, isn't that great? Well, like she said, I asked him, how was your marriage? He said, 65 great years. And what did he say? And what did she say? Oh no, I only had 2 years of great marriage. Ba-boom. That's, by the way, I have to pay reference to Steve Mahoney. That was his favorite. Anyway, I just think, we've got a challenge. We all have a challenge. And I think Councillor Yanika hit it on the head. We've got to start changing attitudes and altitudes and try to provide. The 2- and 3-story fancy buildings, they're out. Let's start thinking for the future. And I think, as a matter of fact, the application, we had a public meeting or a information meeting in my ward for this 20-story building. Unbelievable. Not one person said that's not a good idea. As a matter of fact, I think they got 3 or 4, reservations out of the whole thing. So it shows you that I think if you explain what the process is all about, explain what the need is, and for all of us with aging parents, and by the way, I still have an aging parent, and even though I'm 88, my mother at 98, that won't work, will it? Anyway, I hear that. And when I had to put my dad into a home years ago, I saw the problems. And so you got a big task. But, I think with people like ourselves, hopefully we're going to help you along that road, because I think you said it well. I mean, there's no cure to the aging, and it's all happening. The curve is going up, so let's do something about it. Thank you very much.
You're going to have to give yourself a certificate, Councillor Starr. I do want, he said he was 88, sorry. I picked up on that. You said that. Kathy and Dr. Saha, thank you very much for your presentation. The comments were a lot of coloring outside the lines of what the information report was, but I think it shows the support that's around this table for the good work that you do. And if you could, on behalf of Regional Council, please express appreciation and congratulations to all the staff who provide exceptional service to our seniors in the long-term care facilities.
Thank you very much for your time.
I'll move, would someone like
Thank you
to
for your
move
support.
receipt of the delegation and the information report? Councillor Miles, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. The next report, members of council, is the Paramedic Service 2016 Annual Performance Report. There is no presentation. It is here for information, no recommendation. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Raz. All those in favor? Councillor Groves, you snuck on the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to look at 6.2-7. The first paragraph, just about the pressures in advanced regional advocacy. It's the offload program. And through you, Madam Chair, to staff, Peter, I think you've done a great job in your advocacy for the offloading. I certainly think that where we were years ago and where we are today, there's a huge improvement. But I was at a community meeting last night with our OPP, and they've rolled out their program in moving forward, sort of what they're looking at doing. One of the things that they raise and the concern they raise is really the same as you, the offloading. So they are called in, or they bring patients to the hospital who are suffering from mental health illness, and they're required to stay there. I think that there was a one day at the hospital we had 16 cruisers there from Peel Regional Police. That means that those officers are not out there doing what it is that they need to be doing out there, and that becomes a real challenge. So I'm just wondering, through you, Madam Chair, I don't know how we do this, but one of the things I suggested to our police chief last night is that he coordinates with paramedics and go in together, and with Peel Regional Police as well. I think Peel Regional Police, from what I understand, there's nothing in place for them either, and they're having a really hard time. Both police departments are having a real hard time getting this issue addressed at the provincial level. So I'm going to put it out there, Madam Chair, and I'm not sure how we do this, if we get a hold of the OPP and Peel Regional Police and sort of coordinate the efforts for the advocacy for the offloading.
I'm wondering if staff could take that under advisement and maybe take a conversation offline and think about how or if it comes back to this council.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Parrish.
Yeah, on page 6.2-6, staff well-being, it talks about steps being taken to ensure the program becomes part of paramedic services culture. I know Councillor Downey and I have been on this one for a while. Are things improving with the R2MR program? It says right here that the job satisfaction is lower than other divisions of our staff, so it tells me they're still not super happy.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, you are correct. The results are still lower than some across the organization, but they have increased since previous years. So if you look at the trending, they are trending up. There's a lot of work that continues to be done around R2MR and also the peer-to-peer support program. I actually met with a group from that team just last week, and they are certainly out there working with their colleagues, with their partners to support mental well-being. We're also doing a great amount of work with our health and wellness program, our mental health and wellness program through HR. So a lot of work is being done, and we're seeing the culture change slowly, but it is taking time.
Okay, thank you. They're very fragile, some of them, with what they have to do every day, and I think our job is to make sure that we make that as good for them as we can, so hopefully we're all on top of it.
Thank you. Councillor Raz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will still move the report. One request to staff. I really liked the map on the back that broke everything into 1 square kilometer. If in future, next time, could you just put a dot where the paramedic stations are located? I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks for that suggestion. Councillor Innes.
Thank you. I'm going back and thinking about some of the past paramedic services reports that were received, and I know that we've had a discussion with the new system of deployment, and I was kind of hoping that I would have seen a breakdown per ward as was done previously with regards to response times and those types of information as well. So can I just have direction to staff maybe to send an email out to council members to include that information? Because I'd like to see how that model is being employed, particularly in my wards and throughout all of Caledon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been moved by Councillor Raz. All those in favor? That's carried. And the final report is a recommendation report on response times. I just have to find it here. 6.3, the response time framework for appeal. It's been moved by Councillor Groves. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Half the time we need seconders and the other times not. So I'm going to have Councillor Parrish, I'm sure, was happy to second the previous report. And Mayor Jeffrey was happy to second the first. She's signaling yes, so. Moved by Councillor Grove, seconded by Councillor Palashi. All those in favor of 6.3? Oh, we have to vote on here because it's an approval report. Gotcha.
Taking a long time to do this.
Okay, the motion passes unanimous. Good job.
Kovac didn't abstain.
The final there's two pieces of correspondence, both from Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, Dr. Eric Hoskins. They are here recommended for receipt. Moved by Councillor McFadden, seconded by Councillor Downey. Seeing nobody on the board, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks. That brings us to items related to human services. Councilor Medeiros, if you chair this section, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members of Council, you have before you items 8.1, end of operating agreements. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Raz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is to staff. What is the plan to have discussions with the federal government to re-engage them in continuing to provide funding for our community housing stock?
Through the chair. So there are ongoing advocacy issues related to the federal government. We are in contact with them, and this is a sector-wide issue, not just a Peel issue, so they're actively aware of what our concerns are.
Okay. Would it be helpful to bring a resolution forward, perhaps not at this meeting, but at a subsequent meeting to have the support of council?
Through the chair, I would never say no to a resolution,
Okay.
so it
I'll
may
work
be
on that
helpful.
with you then going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Raz. So no further questions. Moved by Councillor Kovac, second by Councillor Mahoney. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we have, lastly, 3 pieces of correspondence. Moved by Councillor Unica, second by Councillor Innes. All in favor? Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. This brings us to items related to enterprise programs and services. If Councillor Miles would be kind enough to chair this section, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The first item is here for information regarding the Region of Peel credit rating update. Moved by Councillor Raz, seconded by Mayor Thompson. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. The next is the RIC Centre. That's been dealt with. Number 3 for information is on our Customer Contact Center, moved by Councillor McFadden. Oh, I have a question from Councillor Raz.
Presentation, isn't it?
10.3. Sorry. Do we have a presentation? Sorry, Carla.
Yeah, I've been sitting here.
I'll hold my questions till after the presentation.
Good morning, everyone, or is it afternoon? Through you, Madam Chair, and good morning, members of council. It's our pleasure to be here this morning to bring you an update on the Customer Contact Center. I am Carla Hale, the Director of Community Connections, which also includes PAMA. And with me this morning is Michelle Orth, our manager of the Customer Contact Center, and we're just here to give you a brief presentation on what's been happening with citizens across the region of Peel accessing services. The Customer Contact Center and the Customer Service Representatives, or CSRs as we refer to them, handle inquiries as Peel's first point of contact for services such as trans help, waste management, communicable diseases, family health, Ontario Works, children's services, and many more. Our CSRs are available 24/7, 365 days a year, and they offer interpretation services to support our diverse community. The CCC is a multi-channel service offering access and support for residents by phone, email, and social media. And we look to the future to ensure that we keep in step and are meeting client expectations with new channel support, such as live chat via the web in the future. And now I'm just going to turn it over to Michelle to talk about specifics and some stats with you.
The Region of Peel consolidated resident contacts in October of 2005. We collect and use data, call data, for numerous other metrics to plan and make decisions. Residents' calls have reasonably been consistent at approximately 975,000 calls each year since 2012, with a notable increase of approximately 60,000 calls in 2015 and 2016 due to the WASTE program and the cart selection process. It is forecasted that in 2017, call volumes will be more representative of prior years. CSRs resolve approximately 61% of all contacts for best customer service experience, resulting in fewer transfers to program areas and cost avoidance. What is impacting our workload is the increase in call handle times, or average time spent resolving calls. Handle times are increasing for a few reasons. Residents calling in with frequently asked questions are now being served through self-serve options, leaving longer calls and services for the CSRs to handle. Further to this program, changes such as increased hours of evenings and weekends and complexities are driving call handle times. Our handle times are approximately 43% higher in 2017, or 16,000 hours as phone time since the last 5 years of 2012. We do not anticipate a reduction in call handle times. In fact, we do see it growing and continue to grow over time as the trending is upwards, and the reasons for I just spoke to. Our target service level is 80% of our calls answered in 30 seconds. So far in 2017, we're achieving this target 62% of the time. Providing an adequate response to calls is important in order to ensure that we support residents who choose web and other self-serve options move to these lower cost channels. Quality and accuracy is extremely important because residents expect consistent, courteous, and accurate transactions. In order to ensure this experience, CSRs receive regular training, coaching, and their calls are monitored on a regular basis. Call accuracy for 2016 was slightly greater than 99.9%, or 6 errors for every 10,000 calls answered. In 2015, the CCC scored a rating of 8.6 out of 10 client satisfaction in the region's client satisfaction report. This evaluation was completed by a third party and validates that the client experience is very good. attrition rates or staff turnover at the CCC trends low. The industry average is 31%. At the CCC, we are currently at 20%. However, 14% of that is what we refer to as positive attrition. Staff are moving to other positions within the region, utilizing knowledge and skills acquired during their time at the contact center. Through the 2017 budget process, Council approved 7 contract positions to address changing trends in call volumes and increase handle times. In 2018, through the budget process, we will propose converting 3 of the contract CSR positions to regular full-time to ensure good customer care, first contact resolution, and to mitigate staff turnover. The CCC has maintained strong employee engagement, and a number of programs are in place to ensure CSRs remain engaged and satisfied with their work. Currently, the CCC continues to look for opportunities to further efficiencies, such as the remote CSR, or CSRs working from home, which was launched in September of 2016. To date, this program, we have 18 CSRs working from home, and by the end of 2017, we anticipate of having 20 agents working from home. The remote agent program resulted in increased employee engagement, validated by strong testimonials from the staff, increased productivity, and less distractions of a busy office. In addition, there has been a net cost savings of $98,500 annually, and a reduction of 37 tons of CO2 emissions validated by the Office of Climate Change and Energy Management. Further initiatives include changes to our existing upfront messages on the phone to help residents navigate to our services through the telephone options. Our customer service representatives are also scheduled to meet fluctuating call patterns, as well as social media and email demands. We schedule a blend of full-time and part-time staff to meet call flow patterns and fluctuations in calls. For example, on Mondays, it is our busiest day, and we schedule accordingly to ensure staff are available to meet residents' needs. In summary, the Region of Peel's CCC handles resident contacts and inquiries with great care and attention. Experience has demonstrated that call handle times are increasing, while other channels such as email and social media are also continuing to grow. Many measures are in place to ensure client satisfaction and employee engagement, and in order to continue with the present level of service, 7 customer service representative positions, 3 full-time, 4 contract, will be presented to Council through the 2018 budget process.
Thank you. And if there's questions, we're happy to take those.
Yes, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Interesting information. Can you expand a little bit on the plans to increase the number of call center agents that are working from home? And I would be interested just to find out a little bit more information on, even though they're not working within a team proper, they have an increased level of employee engagement.
Absolutely. With the remote agents, as we refer to, or the remote agent program, we do have touch bases through technology, Skype for Business. We actually interact with the staff. They do have instant messaging, so they have the communications with their peers, with the business support team, with the supervisors, and with the manager, if need be, or the director at any moment in time. We have them come into the office twice a month, so they maintain that connectivity with their peers, and just ensuring that they're, felt part of that team atmosphere that still continues.
So beyond 2018, do you plan on expanding this further?
Potentially, we may look at, we do want to investigate the right balance, and it's not necessarily for everyone, and we have worked with partners in the region, HR and SIT and other areas, just to make sure that we have the right balance. And we are looking at potentially 10, but we will revisit that next year.
Okay, I'd be interested to find out about that. And I know when I work from home, I talk to my dog and cat a lot. On the woof. When it comes down to the subject matter area that people are calling in about, I know you touched on a lot of them. Would we be able to get, when you come back to budget, more granular information on the call volumes for each of those service areas? And if you can pinpoint precisely, those longer calls and why they may be focused in on those areas. I would expect the last 2 years are likely related to waste and waste collection. The chart on 10.3-5 was probably a little exaggerated, but your point was made in terms of the call volumes. But I would just like to get a little bit more granular data on the subject matter area, and just see what we can do to assist in that area. So thank you very much for the presentation. Look forward to budget time.
Mayor Crombie?
Sorry. I was just about to take myself off the board because those were my questions as well on the solutions and on the complexity of the calls. So we track, as a matter of fact, by department and division, the number of calls and sort of the types, and those reports are sent out to us. Do you do that as well?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so that's worthwhile. And I guess there's really not a solution since we're able to deal with the simpler Q&As online or through an automated response. Then all they're getting really is the more complex nature, more complex questions that are coming through, and hence they're spending more time. So as well, I guess there's a lot of best practices with other corporations that run call centers, and I'm sure we've looked to them on how they respond in situations like this. I'm thinking the Rogers, the 407s of the world.
Yes, and through you, Madam Chair, we belong to a group of municipalities, service delivery officials, and so there's a lot of sharing of information and training, positions, coaching, you name it, that is shared across the municipalities across Canada. So that's a very rich group that includes both Brampton and Mississauga staff as well.
I'm surprised I don't think I've ever seen a department report talking about the breakout of the calls and what how many for each department and what specific issue. It would allow us to track those hot button issues, as Councillor Rass has pointed out. Are they on waste management? Are they on water costs? Where are they? Am I the only one? Has other people seen them? Has anyone seen them? So we don't get them. Maybe quarterly send them to us, or every 6 months, so we could get an idea of what are those hot button issues that you're spending time on with our residents. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councillor Raz? Oh, no, sorry, Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the presentation. In terms of your protocol in, I guess, engagement with our offices, because, and this is something I've harped on at the City of Brampton, essentially our faces are the face of the services to the region. So when I'm out there and I'm meeting with public, I often get, I've called you and nothing's been done about something, or, there was no follow-up with me. And then I find out later that they did a 311 call. So I've been at the City of Brampton trying, and I think we've established a pretty good protocol in terms of notifying our offices, if, and I don't know, I know we made some recent changes, but it's the ability on, some of these calls coming in, and if they're pinpoint from our location, and if there is a way that this information be shared with us, so that we know when I go to meet with resident A, B, or C, this is the work that they had, or these were the issues, or these were the challenges. And I know this is not an easy process because there is that, I guess, that granular information that we were talking about as you're tracking the different issues, if there's any way to sort of track the different areas or locations.
I guess yes and no. We track information on residents by postal code, but not down to client name and phone number by issue. A lot of that has to do with confidentiality and the number of programs and services that we provide support to. But we do look at issues by postal code and can certainly share that level of information to you in certain ward-specific areas, which I'm sure your 311 call centers do as well. We meet regularly with our 311 partners and discuss topics and issues and how we can partner and collaborate to share information up and across to
to our counselors. So
Yeah,
happy to.
through the chair, I think that would be helpful, and but also vice versa in terms of, I guess some of the calls that, you know, a resident calls in, I guess, and they want to speak to their counselor. Is that information? Is that provided to them to sort of say you can contact them at this information and so on? And when I get calls too, I guess a lot of the calls I get are affordable housing and so on. And then I forward that on to staff. Are you capturing some of that information as well, or is that just more for our own offices, right? Do the departments report that after? Is there like a central depository or of some sort?
So what you're speaking about is a database or a customer
Yeah.
relationship management database, which we're certainly moving towards with our digital strategy so that we can capture more specific information on calls. Certainly in the situation you've talked about, we would make sure that referral is made to a specific counselor and information is provided, but we don't track the client's name
Sure.
to share that with you.
Just through the chair, I just find there's so many access points, and I've had instances in my office where I'm dealing with a resident, and then I spend a lot of time on the resident to find out that they've also been spending a lot of time with staff at the same time. And then finally, when we do the cross-reference, we realize, so there's all these different access points that just trying to be able to sort of track, and that we're not, tripping over ourselves in duplication of time and effort. So anyways, just some comments. Thank you.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and sorry, just very quickly, on the, when you report back, if the information can be broken down by ward, that would be entirely helpful, because when I look at the cities, when we get our 311 report from the city, I try to gear my next newsletter to where those information gaps are, so that's very helpful. Thank you.
So just for my clarification, I was just comparing notes with the councillor sitting next to me, and we were saying that we do not get referrals from the region, but then we are getting referrals on regional issues, so I'm rethinking that. So if someone calls 311 and it's a regional issue, it would get forwarded to you to deal with. And then, so how does it end up back then to us?
From the contact center?
Yes.
So our CSRs answer main calls, so the 7800 number, 791-7800 number, and they have information on the counselors and their wards, and their information would be given to the resident.
So would they contact us directly? Would we get, like we get, from the City of Brampton, we get, if someone calls the call center and they want to speak to us, we get a form that's forwarded on to us, and then we follow up. Some of it is regional issues. Some of it's waste, some of it's housing, some of it's Ontario Works. So how does that work within the system?
So we don't have a form today. It would be via phone or email. So the information is available for the staff, and it is on our regional site as well. So we can direct the residents to the appropriate request.
So someone dials 311. It's a regional issue. It gets reverted to the regional call center. You take the information down. Do you have like an order number that says, okay, this request, this information is forwarded on to Public Works, or?
So once again, similar to a CRM, what Carla was speaking to, we have multiple databases, so depending on the event or what the issue is, could be Public Works, it could be housing, it could be a variety, it could be waste, and yes, it would be logged in a system, in a database, depending on the type of service that their request is about.
Okay, so Brampton would have a dispatch number, so a caller calls in, they want some kind of assistance on something, they would get a service number, and then if they want to follow up, they have the service number, they just have to go to use that number in order to get feedback.
That's correct. They can call us back or contact us back via email or Twitter, and we would be able to pull it up in our system and provide any feedback.
But do you have a service number?
Yes, we do.
It's
depending on the database
So
itself.
you're both using the same system, city and region?
We are
No.
not. We are not.
Yes, so for our customer relationship management systems that we are using, they are different technologies. When it comes to the program areas that we support, we use their systems. In many cases, it's the legacy systems, and we're entering data on customer inquiries directly into those systems. But if that same question came to the City of Brampton, an employee at the City of Brampton, they would transfer it to us so that we could log it and give a service request. So we have protocols and processes in place on every call type across each program and across municipalities so that we can ensure kind of a consistent service and a pathway and reduce the number of points that are duplicated. So
I don't know about anybody else, but I still have lots of questions, but I think I'll follow up myself with staff on that, unless there's others who feel the same way. Councillor Pelletier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I see it, I get it, I don't like it, but I understand it. And I just hope that we strive to have more of a modernized system where we're one-stop shop between all the municipalities and the region, and it's one system. And I think that there's nothing worse than being bounced around and, given one number that doesn't you can't capture that number at a different municipality or the region. So I hope that we're one day thinking about or getting closer to having one system. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So the report, members of council, is here for information. I would take a moved by Councillor Madeira, seconded by Councillor Pelletier. All in favor? That's carried. The next item is here. It's on Managed Unified Communication and Collaboration Services. It's an action plan, and it's here for your information. The regional chair would like to make comments.
No, I just wanted to remind you that it's related to an in-camera matter as well.
Yes.
And I don't know if council wish to go in camera, if there's any questions or not. They're both for information.
Do you want me to hold this item until after we've dealt with it in camera, Mr. Chairman?
No, my suggestion would be if council has questions and wants to go into camera, we do it now before we proceed with this item.
Okay. Is there questions? Yes. Okay. So we'll move on with the rest of the agenda then.
No, we'll move into camera.
You want us to move into
Yes.
camera?
We'll move into lunch.
After in camera, if you want.
Okay, I think
Okay.
members of council are indicating they'd like to finish this section, so can we finish this section and then move in camera on this item?
We can. We do have an external solicitor here today. That's one of the reasons I wanted to move into camera.
Cha-ching, they cost lots of money.
Okay. Members of council, I think then perhaps we should move in camera on this item. Is there agreement?
Yeah.
I'm at your wishes, okay. I would take a motion then moved by Mayor Thompson, seconded by
I have a motion moved by Mayor Crombie, seconded by Councillor Pelletier, that the July 6, 2017 Regional Council closed session report be received, and further that the in-camera report titled Solicitor-Client Privileged Legal Advice Regarding Managed Unified Communication Collaboration Services, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, listed as item 17.2 on the September 14, 2017 Regional Council meeting or agenda, be received, and further that the in-camera report titled Solicitor-Client Privileged Legal Advice Regarding Councillor Indemnification, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, listed as item 17.3 on the September 14, 2017 Regional Council agenda, be received. And this will be a... Oh, it's not? Oh, yeah, there's no action. So all in favor then? Opposed of any? Carried. And we'll... No. Is it a wish to break for lunch? We'll do so.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, 10.5.
So we're on 10.5 now. So members of committee, item 10.5, there is a recommendation in regards to the summit. This recommendation is contrary to original recommendation that was passed to hold the summit. So in order for us to deal with the item, we have to have 2/3 of council willing to reopen the issue. So it's a recorded vote, so we would be asking, the motion would be to reopen the issue. Okay, moved by Councillor Sato. Do I need a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Groves. All in favor? Okay, recorded vote. Martin, recorded vote, yes. Reopen. Reopen.
Councillor Ianika is not present for the vote. Councillor Kovac, Councillor Tovey, Mayor Thompson, Councillor Shaughnessy. Yep, push it again. There you go. It passed. Thank you.
Okay, great. So now we will open the floor for speakers to this issue. And the first speaker is Councillor Parrish.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a little disappointing. First of all, I would like to compliment two particular staff, but we had an amazing team. David Arbuckle should be marketed somewhere. He is the most unique, smartest, best, hardworking guy I've ever met. And Angela McLean can organize us out of a paper bag without... She just snaps us too. It really was, the staff from the region were terrific. And that's why this is more disappointing than you can guess. Under what we started with was 10-year-old statistics. The good thing was they were very clear. You could trace where the money was coming from, where the money went, how we were being shortchanged. It was very, very clear. In the 10-year interim, it all got buried, twisted, dressed up like little puffy bears. I don't know what they did with it, but we had one heck of a time trying to find exactly where we stood in the province as far as our grants and our funding was concerned. We did confirm underfunding in home care, mental health addictions, education, housing, immigration settlement, and commercial or social services, community and social services, which is a chunk of information that we can use to put a piece together to take to the province, and the time was not wasted on that. The school boards had solid data. Theirs was very good. And they may proceed, but they want to wait until after the election because their theory is, depending on how strong your MPP is, you get more or less money out of the province. It's not one of those per capita deals. It's per MPP deal. So they don't want to irritate anybody before the election. So the last bullet that recommends $25,000 to help them with a summit, I'm going to delete or suggest that we don't even consider that. I would like us to consider asking the province for clarity and give them all the departments that we're missing stats in and come back at this again once we get those statistics all tracked back. I would also like, rather than the budget of $90,000 just vaporizing, I would hope that David and Angela can come back with a small report suggesting what they would need to do a really good lobby job on the stuff that we do have good stats on, a little bit of printing, whatever they recommend. So the summit, main recommendation is we don't go ahead in November. First of all, we don't want to look like we're incompetent. We can stand there and say, well, we know we can't get the numbers, and they'll go, yeah, yeah, yeah. Secondly, it is an election year, and we don't want to do anything that's a bit crazy and use the wrong numbers. And well, I would personally do it, but I think the reputation of the region is at stake, and I think we have to be on solid ground. We have to make sure not to use those old stats from 10 years ago. Just wipe them out of your minds. They don't exist anymore. One of the things, just to give you an example, the immigration funding. We tracked the immigration funding. It took us 3 months to get an amount. And in Ontario, which is double, if not triple the size of Quebec, we get less from the federal government than Quebec does, which is an interesting little thing. It happened when I was there. But they don't give it to the province anymore to distribute. They give it straight to the agencies. And under confidentiality, they don't tell us what agencies are getting it or how much they're getting. So they've managed to get rid of all those little strings that you could use to follow and to compare. So I would move today that we do pursue the underfunded areas that we're absolutely 100% sure of, and we ask the staff to come back with a plan to go to the province with that. We also ask for clarity on the data gaps, which have been so nicely buried that it's going to take a while to unbury them. And we don't need the $25,000 for the boards. And we justified initially recommending that because they worked really hard on our team. They had absolutely impeccable data, and they were very keen to keep going. But as soon as we backed off, they said, no, they're going to leave it as well. So, and the schools that are not getting enough money for immigrant settlement and English as a second language and all the things that they're being shortchanged on, and social services become our problem in our social service agencies. So we thought it was good to recommend it, but now I am suggesting we withdraw that. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Parrish. I'm assuming that you're going to move the motion. The body of the report is very clear in regards to where we do have concrete numbers that can be used. I think the motion does address the regional chair and the CAO pursuing matters with the province of Ontario, and you were asking for direction in regards to the funding part of this. So I don't know if you want to put it in the form of a motion. I guess I would seek some guidance from the chair or the CAO in regards to the funds that were allocated for this. Councillor Parrish was asking.
Yeah, I think it's
that-
captured in the motion here.
Okay. Okay.
Taking the $25,000 out.
And yes, the last paragraph of the recommendation is withdrawn. So we do have a mover, Councillor Parrish. Could I have a seconder? Mayor Crombie. All in favor? You need to vote.
Councillor Kovac is absent for the vote. Councillor Ionica. Councillor Tovey is absent for the vote. He's left for the day.
Okay, so that motion carries. The next item on...
Can I add just one comment through you, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I really would sincerely like to thank our staff. I think they did an amazing job. And I would like to thank the staffs that came from the other municipalities. Everybody in that room was keen, excited, really cared about the people in our region, and I want to thank everybody.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to item 10.6.1, and it is in regards to a pilot project for the implementation of a consent agenda. The first part of the pilot will be following Mississauga's model, the second following Brampton's model. Mayor Crombie?
No, I'd just like to move it. I think it's a great idea. We've been implementing it quite successfully. It's actually moved things along quite nicely in Mississauga, so hope we can adopt it here. We're still getting used to it.
Okay, good. Good.
But it's going well.
Good. Okay, so it's been moved by Mayor Crombie, seconded by Mayor Jeffrey. Would you please vote on your voting tabulator?
Councillor Kovac, Councillor Ionica, Councillor Tovey absent for the vote.
That carries. Okay, the next item on our agenda is in regards to the proclamation of Bill 39, an act to amend the Aggregate Resources Act and Mining Act. There is a recommendation in the report. Councillor Shaughnessy?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Couple of concerns, and I just want to bring it to the attention of council. Recycling and going into pits has always been a contentious issue in Caledon, especially when we're dealing with water. What I wanted everybody to note in this report is that the Region Appeal gets levies on what comes out of a pit, but recycling is actually going into a pit, which still is using up regional road time and wear and tear, and we get no money on that. So that was the first thing I wanted to point out. The other part of it that worries me a bit is that there's no reporting on what's actually going into the pit. It's only reporting on what's coming out of the pit as far as recycling goes. My community is concerned that our pits may become storage space for recycling. And I think it would be advantageous to know what actually went in and what actually came out. So in future advocacy here at the Region Appeal, I would love us to address those concerns and keep track of that moving forward. You're welcome to speak to it.
I would just say that we're happy to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. So there is a recommendation moved by Councillor Shaughnessy, seconded by Councillor McFadden. All in favor, press your button. That carries. Moving on to item 10.8, which is, it does come with a recommendation as well. It's the final comments on Bill 139, proposed changes to the OMB Act and the Planning Act and Conservation Act. There's a recommendation. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you for also the advocacy on, no offense to my other colleagues over there, on the ministerial zoning orders, your advocacy that it should still be appealable. I know it was brought up at Regional Council, and I've heard it strongly from my community, and I think that is something that you're going to continue to work on. Is that what it is? So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion moved by Councillor Shaughnessy, seconded by Councillor Kovac. Everybody needs to press their button for the vote. So, all in favor? That carries. Item 10.9. Sorry, I've got to find it. Okay, 10.9 is also a recommendation report. It's on the proposed natural heritage system for the growth plan and draft agricultural system mapping and implementation procedures for the growth plan and the Greenbelt plan. Councillor Shaughnessy, are you speaking to this, or are you from the last item?
No, I just wanted to quickly speak to
Okay.
it. Thank you very
Councillor
much.
Shaughnessy.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask staff, I'm not sure who I'm asking up here, are you in direct consultation with our Peel Federation of Agriculture on something like this? Did we go out and did we do a meeting with them or anything like that?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do engage PFA members sitting on our Peel Agricultural Advisory Working Group, and we have not gone to a PFA meeting to present or discuss this topic, but we're open to doing that, and we're looking forward to working with the PFA on all of the associated agricultural system policies and mapping. Yes.
Thank you very much. I think it would be important for us to reach out to them and set up a meeting. I think
It's of great concern to the agricultural community. They always feel like there's more and more restrictions on them and it's harder to do business. So I think setting up a meeting with them, Mark, would be a great idea. I would go to it to listen to it too.
We'll reach out and make that happen.
That's great. Did they comment on this by any chance? Did we get any comments in from PFA on this?
They're developing their response,
Okay.
and I've discussed their preliminary questions, concerns with individual members, but they're still working on a response.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Downey.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just to clarify on that, this item was discussed at last week's PFA meeting. Just for Councillor Shaughnessy's benefit, I was there and did connect staff with the PFA, and they do have this report in front of them and are aligning their comments as well. So I just wanted to, as Mark said, the conversations are happening. So
that's good news. Okay, great. So the motion is before you. Recommendation report. Moved by Councillor Downey, seconded by Councillor Palache. Would you vote on your voting machine, please?
Sorry, Mayor Jeffrey, Mayor Innes, or Councillor Innes.
Too much yep, maybe, huh?
Very nice. There you go. That item passes. Okay, so we're moving now on to items of communication. Of note, item 11.8 was deferred to the next, or was deferred till after it was dealt with by the Police Services Board. And was that already dealt with? Okay, so all other items of communication, as far as I can see, are here for your receipt. I would be happy to take this in one motion. Moved by Councillor McFadden, seconded by Councillor Medeiros. All in favor, you can raise your hands on that one. That is carried. Okay, thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Brings us to items related to Public Works. Councillor Starr, if you'd chair this section, please.
Okay, we have a heavy-duty agenda here. 12.1, which is the light rail project. Any questions, comments? It's a very thorough report. No questions. I do have, I think if I'm reading this right, we've allocated $105 million for this whole area, or is this a budget amount over 3 years?
Through the chair, that's the entire amount. We've allocated what the regional share we believe to be based on the MOU, which is if we were planning to do state of good repair already on it, or we wanted to strategically upsize, we should pay for that, and it's about $24 million. Right.
Okay, so where does the 105 come from?
So, through the chair, that we have to go back a couple of years. Originally, when we started this project, our intent was everything that had to be replaced, moved, protected, we were going to do all of it ourselves. We were a little optimistic of how far along Metrolinx would be with their design. They still, it only went out for proposals within the last month or 6 weeks. So we are going to reduce that $105 million down to the $24 million that we're going to spend. The majority of it they're going to spend on their own, and we won't have anything to do with it. So we'd set up a big budget so that we had somewhere to charge all of our time to get paid back, and now they're just going to spend the money on their own.
Okay. And then as we go through this process over the next number of years, I noticed that there's requests to make the commissioner the all-powerful decision maker. Are we going to get regular reports on this and what it's costing and if there's financial implications, et cetera?
Absolutely. We will definitely, if there's anything outside of my approved budget authority, it will be coming back, but we can bring regular updates because this is a pretty substantial project.
I would agree. It's pretty complex, and I would think that a lot of us would like to be, kept up to date on it,
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments from anybody? Okay. Oh, Councillor Gibson, sorry.
Sorry to be a pain. I just
want to hear that one more time. So Metrolinx now are paying for the?
All but 24.
All but 24.
So the way it works is they're paying to move, replace, protect any piece of infrastructure that we were not going to plan to replace or upsize or anything else within the next 10 years. So essentially over the course of the project. So all that's left is $23.5 million worth of work we were going to do anyway. If there had been no LRT, we would still be, there's some pipes we have to replace on Euro Ontario. There's some other crossings we have to do to service growth, things like that. That's all that's left.
Feel vindicated right now. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Seeing no one else on the board, Councillor Kovac, since it's running through your ward, we'd like to move that. Councillor Tovey, second. All in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Oh, I'm sorry. That's a real vote. Are we okay? Okay. We have several items of communication. I think the first one, Madam Clerk, we've dealt with that, right? So that's fine. We have two other items from Sylvia Jones and Terry Branton. It refers to other items. Any questions?
13.2 requires
Oh, it does? Oh, I see. Right. 13.2. You've all read the report, the direction? Any comments? Yes, no? Councillor Miles.
Well, it makes sense that we would be notified if sewage was going somewhere it shouldn't.
I would think so.
So it's kind of a no-brainer, right? So direction is to support her?
In support?
Well, she's asking
Yes.
for support, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll move we support her.
I second it.
Okay. Councillor Miles,
Yeah?
are you done? Okay, Councillor Tovey?
Yeah, just a comment on that. I fully support that. Part of the challenge, and I think part of the reason Sylvia is doing this, and I'd like to compliment her and thank her for it, is that the City of Toronto does not report when they have their overflows. They don't report it to the public. And that's been a very contentious issue right across the City of Toronto, because basically if they get about 30, 35 millimeters of rain because they have a combined system, they have raw sewage going out at 12 locations right across the waterfront, which is the only time that we have to close our beaches. So I'd like to, thank her for this very much. It's very much needed. So good job, Sylvia.
Any other comments, questions? Right digit finger voting? Okay, this item is passed successfully. The last item is 13.3, which is correspondence from the City of Brampton. Receipt is recommended. Any questions, comments? Okay, moved by, who wants to move it? Councillor Gibson? No? Okay, moved by Councillor Groves, seconded by Mayor Jeffries. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Other business that was withdrawn brings us to 14.2. Request from Lori McKee, Director of Public Affairs and Stakeholders Relations, member of the Board of Directors with Greater Toronto Airport Authority, to delegate at the October 12th meeting. Someone want? I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Mahoney, second by Councillor Kovac. And you have to, Councillor Moore, please.
Well, thank you. I was just going to move all requests to speak. There's 3 requests for delegation.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay, I'll move all 3.
All right, and Councillor Mahoney will second that. And ask that you make your selection then.
I got Councillor Parrish now.
Well, Councillor Parrish.
Yeah, I'm just hearkening back to how long we went through delegations earlier today. And it says right on here that their remarks are to be kept to 5 minutes. I know the presentation from the airport is much longer than that. Could we start enforcing some of these rules around here? Because we could have been out of here an hour ago if those delegations had been a little shorter. And obviously, we around the table have to exercise some control as well on our comments and questions. But I'd love to see these things move a little more quickly. We've seen the airport one, so that's why I'm using that as an example. But I think we should start enforcing the 5-minute rule, please.
Yeah, I guess it's what happens sometimes is sort of at the discretion of what they're presenting, because a lot of it is a lot of interest in council. You know, I'm in a catch-22 sometimes, but I hear you, and where we can do it, we will. There are sometimes where there's delegations that are required, really, I feel, to be a little bit longer than the 5 minutes, but that's at council's direction to pass a motion to extend it, but we'll do, I hear you. We'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
To keep it down. Okay, so you make your selection on all 3 delegations then. Thanks. Just once. It's carried. Okay. 14.5 is a motion from Mayor Crombie requesting endorsement of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, and Councillor Tovey will second that. Absolutely. All right. So make your selection, please. It's passed, thank you. And then there's one summary note with respect to the cannabis legalization and regulation. Just receipt. Councillor Tovey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been talking to a lot of people about this because, you know, I have poor credits on what I'm really concerned about is all these pot shops opening up, a bar, a pot shop, a bar, a pot shop, a bar. I don't think that would be good for anybody. But I like the way the legislation is going on it. I mean, it's just a question to staff. What I couldn't find was whether or not they are going to allow like smoking rooms, you know, sort of like pot bars, like that kinds of thing, where the legislation allows for that. I couldn't find anything in the legislation that specifically said you can't do it. I guess that's my concern. So through you, Mr. Chair, to anybody on staff, has anybody heard about that?
Yes, so through the chair, we attended a teleconference with the ministers earlier, last week now, and it's not entirely clear. However, the signals that we are getting is that right now they are looking at allowing smoking of cannabis or vaping of cannabis only in private residences at this point in time. There may be, I think, leaving the door open that there may be something in the future. However, at this point in time, they have signaled private residences only.
Okay, thank you.
Just before I go to the mayor, David had a comment. That's okay.
The other part to that, I was on that conference call too, was that the federal government does not yet regulate edible forms of cannabis. And if that does follow, that's what may open the door, no pun intended, to cafe-type situations.
Thank you. Mayor Crombie.
Just a final thought on this. We probably need a presentation at some point to learn more what the implications will be for municipalities in the region. I mean, there will be costs to us, and there's no suggestion we're going to be compensated for any of that. So.
Through the chair, we are planning to bring back a report to council that speaks both to the public health implications as well as the implications for the region, and we can include a presentation with that at that point in time.
There's no suggestion of, you know, allocation to cities for dedicated use on something, share of revenue stream?
Through the chair, that was certainly raised by your colleagues on that call, but we have not received any further detailed information on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Sort of to similar point, we have a lot of seniors residents that we were looking at, trying to end the smoking within them, but now this is smoking and that is their personal residence. And sometimes the air purification systems in our building are not great. So are you going to also put that into a report that comes back? Because that to me is also a concern.
Yes, through the chair, this has been identified as a significant for people who live in multi-unit dwellings and condominiums, and so we will include further information about that in the report.
Okay. Thank you. Then this is for receipt, so I'd ask Councillor Tovey if you'd move receipt. Seconded by Mayor Crombie. All in favor? Just show of hands. Thank you. Carried. I have a notice of motion that was presented to me by Councillor Sprovieri, and it's been seconded by Councillor Shaughnessy, that will be placed today, but will go to the next council meeting. And it's with respect to fluoride. And I've asked the clerk, because it was more than one page, if just to hand it out now. So you can read that at your leisure. We're on to the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council. Moved by Councillor Kovac, seconded by Councillor Innes, that the bylaw 42-2017 to confirm the proceedings of Regional Council at its meeting held September 14, 2017, and to authorize the execution of documents in accordance with the region appeal bylaws relating thereto, be given the required number of readings, taken as read, signed by the regional chair and the regional clerk, and the corporate seal be affixed thereto. All in favor? Just show of hands, please. All opposed? Carried. And motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Shaughnessy and seconded by Councillor Gibson. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.